All right, Lisa, I think I've got around it. It looks like we're streaming now.
All right.
All right. Thanks for your patience, everyone. The first item on consent agenda.
Yeah, continuance items.
Okay, continuance items.
Yeah.
Docket item C4, case number final plat 2021-00059. Request to approve a final plat on 28 acres in District MPD located at the northwest corner of Northwest Old Stagecoach Road and North Line Creek Parkway. Staff and the applicant are requesting continuance to February 1st, and staff recommends without fee. In docket item C5, case number final plat 2021-00061, a request to approve a final plat in District UR, creating one lot for a mixed-use development on about 1 acre at the northeast corner of Gillum and 31st Street. The applicant is requesting continuance off docket, and staff is recommending with fee. And those are the only continuances on consent.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners regarding docket items C4 and C5? All right, so we'll go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. So if there's anybody out there that would like to discuss the continuance of docket items C4 or C5, please raise your hand and you will be called upon.
Mr. Chair, Doug Stone has raised his hand. I'll promote him.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Stone. As you are promoted here, can you please state your name and address for the record and which case you're talking about here? So I don't think he's been promoted yet.
Oh, he just chatted that he's only here for C1. So he probably had his hand raised just for that. And I haven't called that case yet, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then on C4 and C5. So I'll take a motion for continuance of those two docket items, please.
Chair Corral, I move to continue docket item C4 to February 1st without fee and to continue C5 off docket with fee.
Second.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second for continuance of those two cases. Lisa, can you take a roll call, please, on that motion?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like the motion passes for continuance of docket items C4 and C5. So let's go ahead with the C1, 2, and 3 then.
All right, docket item C1 is case number CBC 2021-00227. Request to approve a project plan to allow for the construction of a 4-story self-storage warehouse on about 1.5 acres located at 238 West 73rd Terrace. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. Docket item C2, case number CPC 2021-00228. Request to approve a project plan for a warehouse and various site improvements for the Congress Corporate Center on about 15 acres located at 11500 North Congress Avenue. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. And docket item C3, case number CPC 2021-00233. A request to approve a project plan on about 1 acre in District SC for Shoal Creek at the northeast corner of Highway 152 and North Booth Avenue to allow for Fairway Meat Market. Staff is recommending approval of this with conditions as well. And that concludes the consent docket.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners regarding docket items C1, C2, or C3?
I would like to hear about C1
Okay.
from staff.
All right,
There you
the planner for that project is Genevieve Khan. Are you wanting a presentation or just have questions?
I mean, on the surface, I don't approve it. So I'd like to kind of hear the rationale behind the recommendation. If it's just because of the zoning as is today, and kind of the height as well, and then the use for the building.
Right.
Sure, I can speak to that if you would like. Or I know Doug Stone is on the line also, and he's part of the applicant team for that. So if there's any specific questions, I'll just say in general, everything that they've provided to us complies with the code, and it is kind of a unique zoning situation where an M industrial zoning is abutting a residential zoning. So we really just worked with the applicant team to try and work on screening. But because the zoning allows for that height, I mean, we can't tell them that they need to do otherwise. So if you have any other questions, I can answer, and also Doug Stone.
This is an area too, I can add quickly from the staff perspective that the area plan for this area of the city is maybe 5 years old or 6 years old. And it recommends essentially downzoning some of these areas. I don't know if this particular property is included in that recommendation, but there is some what I would call older industrial zoning up and down the old trolley trail area, all the way south to 85th Street, and it continues northward to about Gregory. And this is one of those properties that is captured in that industrial zoning, and as a result, the use is allowed. And until, you know, the city council or the various neighborhood associations or neighborhood groups, you know, initiate down zoning, that industrial zoning will remain in place.
I was also kind of surprised by this one in that in terms of long range planning, because I totally get how with the zoning, the use is allowed, and appreciate the extra materials and screening. And so I was surprised that because of the zoning allows it, you know, a neighbor might not know that this is happening. And so you might see the 40-foot building go up behind you. And so I was curious what in an ideal situation for a similar type of project or similar type of piece of land, how it would be downzoned. And so if it first starts with long range planning, if there's a recommendation, what that process looks like in a similar situation.
Downzonings are very labor intensive for whoever initiates them because of the requirements, because of the fact that they make a lot of properties non-conforming. And the property owners who are made non-conforming have the opportunity to register their non-conforming use. So there is something there that protects the rights of the existing property owners, but because of all the work, because of all of the impact it can have on property owners and their rights, they're very labor intensive, whether it's the business association or neighborhood group that's initiating it, or whether it's the city council that's initiating it, and then staff is doing the work in those cases typically. So due to that, there's a high cost to file an application because of the labor involved. So it's not common, frankly, for downzonings to be initiated. You don't see very many of them occurring over time. And so I would imagine, this is just my opinion, I think that's something that really needs to be discussed when we're developing our long range plans, is to identify where downzonings are recommended and the resources that would be necessary to make those downzonings happen, and who's responsible for carrying that out.
I guess my concern is less about the downzoning, right, and more about the use. It's a highly trafficked, there's a bus line. You can make an argument that a lot of that industrial use is not contributing to the vibrancy of the neighborhood. And I'd rather have more residents there to use the trail and to use the Mac line and to get to and from work. But I mean, we have a huge self-storage unit just down south of 75th, like massive. And it's I don't know, whenever I see self-storage, my ears perk up because it's not my favorite thing in the world.
One other question for staff. So I was thinking for some reason, like, oh, maybe Brookside, Recognized Boulevard is closer, or because it's neighboring a park, or maybe there's an overlay district. In that situation, if something is allowed by right, if there's an overlay district, would that then potentially create a conflict, or would that be an area in which you either have to get approval from or you either have to get approval or talk to neighbors, et cetera?
Overlay districts are just a kind of zoning district that usually are more restrictive than what we would call the base zoning, which is everything that has a base zoning district. So it could, but it would be procedurally similar to a downzoning. They're both rezonings.
And there's nothing in this area, like, I mean, there's nothing about it abutting a park, and there's no. Okay, thanks.
No, there's no boulevard or parkway or park standards that apply to this property.
So I just want to make sure I understand, Joe, what is the reasoning for us seeing this case if it is by right? They're allowed to use this zoning. Can you clarify that?
Genevieve, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing in the code that triggers the requirement for a project plan. Is that right?
That's correct. I know we had a meeting with the development team for this, and I think all decided that that this was a good path, just so that it actually, they took the steps to take it through our division in order to go through this type of review, so we could look at the screening and the lighting and the architectural elements.
So the applicant self-selected to go through this process. They weren't required to, and part of the reason I believe they did that in communicating with them, I was at the pre-application meeting, was so that there would be a venue for someone to participate if the public had any concerns, because we knew that this was kind of an exceptional case in the case of the zoning for the property.
I'll flesh that out when given the opportunity. I'll flesh that out for the commissioners too.
Okay, any other questions from the commission to city staff? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and open it up to the applicant. Since you're here, I guess it's a public comment, really. So Mr. Stone, if you'd like to speak on this case, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry to me prematurely over there, but so let me back up here a little bit. I think everybody understands that this property is a former Mako. It was an industrial building. To the north is the Sutherlands. All around us is an older industrial buildings. Even the property is owned residential next to us has an industrial use. This is permitted as a matter of right. We had a pre-application meeting, and the discussion was, and you know, I think a lot of you know me, and I think the discussion was, we would rather expose this to the community and have a project that has community buy-in, because my client will be the first to tell you that a self-storage facility in an area where everybody thinks the devil is not a success. And so my client's approach was to actually reach out to the neighbors affirmatively. We met with the Waldo Community Improvement District's property committee. That committee invited the president of the neighborhood association, I think 2 of them in the area, Tower, and I correct me if I'm wrong, Ward Parkway Estates maybe. But we had a full vetting of our plan with the CID property committee board and those other interested neighborhood people. They had some suggestions and we incorporated them. One of the suggestions that they asked us to do, which we did happily, was to modify the design of our fencing, both next to and also not next to the trail, so that the fencing along the west side that would be along the trail, where there'll be some significant landscaping, is going to match the streetscape that's part of the design project along Warnell at that place. And we've looked at the design and we've submitted that back to city planning, and they've gone through, and we also submitted it back to the CID. I will tell you that people knew about this application. I think it remains to be seen. I think it's frankly a credit to my client that it didn't simply say, this is as a matter of right, where's my building permit? That instead it engaged with the neighborhood, took the neighborhood's comments and incorporated them. I will also tell you that although I think it was Commissioner Baker that said that there is a huge facility to the south, I will tell you that a market study shows that this neighborhood is severely underserved. And in fact, although nobody seems to like self-storage, everybody wants to have self-storage. This is a use that generates 6 to 10 cars a day, no more than that. This is not a high traffic type of use, well more cars than you're going to see right next door at Sutherland's. We've got security, and we've got modern facilities. The truth is people need storage. And it was important to us that the neighbors view us as a good partner. And the truth is, as a credit to my client, I think they would tell you we are. And so we would ask for your support. This is not a national chain of and I don't want to disparage anybody, but this is a kind of a small business with, I don't know, 10 or 12, maybe 15 in the Midwest, and they're a local partner. It's what they are. It's what they want to be. This is where their customer base is. And so, people don't travel 10 miles to go to self-storage. They travel 4 blocks. And so we believe that we will be a good partner in the neighborhood. And frankly, I think the neighborhood believes that too. And so we would ask for your support of this application. Thank you. I'll be glad to answer other questions.
Could I ask one clarification question on the positioning of the building?
Yeah.
I'm trying to visualize. So the current building is to the east of the trail. So the trail will be in front of the building, the old one and the new one?
The building will face south. The front facade, which is where what I call where the office is. I don't know, Stacy, if you, that's not Stacy.
Genevieve.
Thank you, Genevieve. I don't know if you have those up and available, but the south elevation is the front. That's where the office is, where you would go to create your rental relationship. And then there are doors around the various other facades that are some are just doors, and some are units that go right out to the exterior. And of course, there are interior units as well, and there's a corridor and all those sorts of things inside that you have with temperature control and the like. But to answer your question, the front door faces south.
And the applicant is under contract to purchase the property, or they currently own the property?
We're under contract to purchase the property. We're in the end of our due diligence period here. And yeah.
I have another question for staff. Is the trail there? So the trail is not considered a park, or it is considered a park?
It is not considered a park.
Gotcha. And then
it's now owned by the city, though. It used to be owned by Kcia. So city owns it, correct now?
I believe so, but it doesn't. I think what you're asking is if it triggers any of the Boulevard and Parkway standards, which it does not.
Well, I know, yeah, Joe had clarified that. I was just curious if it was considered a park, and if I was just more curious for future cases, if you could have a park next to higher uses like this. But got it. So it's in how it's just designated. I think it's like zoned as business and manufacturing. It just happens to have a trail on it then. Is that how I would think about that parcel of land?
Which part?
Yeah, let me pull
The
that
trail.
up on
So
the map.
it's a city piece of land and it's zoned business and manufacturing and just so happens to be used primarily as a trail. Is that the right way to think about that piece of property?
I mean, you can think, I don't mean to sound flip in any way, but you can think of it however you'd like. I mean, I think Genevieve answered it as correctly as we can, which is that it's not considered to be a park by the Parks Department. It's not owned by the Parks Department. It is owned by the city, but not the Parks Department. So it does not trigger any regulation in terms of proximity to a park.
Yeah, I'm just trying to learn if, like in the future, if I were talking to a long range planner, if I were to talk about a certain trail, let's say, and say, hey, since it's used, looks like a trail, it's used as a trail, can we zone it in a certain way so that it would be reflected when other properties that are abutting it come up, you know, we can say, hey, this is park, you know, or this is parkland, you know, even if it's not zoned
Mhm.
appropriately. I'm just curious. So that way in the future, people, because I think a lot of people might look at this and be like, what the heck? Why did we build, you know, 4 stories of self-storage right next to this trail that hundreds of people use all the time? And I'd like to be able to say, hey, here's how we can avoid that. If that's the goal to avoid it in the future, here's how we could avoid it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been relying upon the Parks Department to do is to tell us if something is a park under their interpretations. They do have a reference manual that identifies all their parks, but the zoning code does not define park. So we rely upon the Parks Department to tell us that using their reference manual. To my understanding, this is not identified as a park. I think the best thing to do long-term would be to define park in the code so that we can make the interpretation in our department, since the zoning regulations are enforced by us and applied by us. I don't know if that answers, I think that's the best way of handling it. There's not a zoning district that's for parks. We don't have a civic zoning district or anything like that. But so our parks are all varieties of zonings. We have parks that are zoned industrially in the city.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And again, Mr. Stone, I totally understand that this is allowed by right. I'm just trying to learn the context of the situation.
That's okay. My client was texting me, freaking out, and I said, they're just getting information. Don't panic. No, seriously, I just want to say that I hope you do take into account the fact that we've affirmatively went to the neighborhood and engaged with them. And so I don't think you're going to find that this is particular use is something that the neighborhood doesn't want. I actually think you would find the opposite. So
I had a couple questions for you, Doug. One is I didn't see any sign-in sheet or anything from a meeting, and I don't know if you have any people who are attending today, but I just wondered if you had some folks who could speak in favor of the project.
So that's it's funny. Genevieve and I had an exchange about that. Because of the kind of application this is, there is no requirement for public input. However, as I said, we did it anyway. We didn't have a meeting under the code public engagement where you have a sign-in sheet and you give 10 days notice. No, we just went to the CID and they invited neighborhood business owners, as I said, people on the property committee. That's what they do. That's who we would go to if we were having public engagement.
Can you give me a sense of how many people attended that meeting?
Oh my God, I would say 20.
Okay.
I mean, it was a real meeting. I mean, the Waldo CID property committee has 10 or so people on it just by itself, I think. And I mean, we had a robust discussion. This was not two people that, you know, this was a real meeting. And as I said, I don't know if anybody else is here. I think Angie, hold on.
Angie Lyle raised her
Angie
hand,
Lyle was
Mr. Chair,
on.
and I promoted her.
I would, you know, I'm going to cross my fingers after everything I've said and say that Angie Lyle, who's the Neighborhood Association president, who I think was at the CID, I'm pretty sure was at the CID, Waldo Property Committee meeting, with whom I've engaged, is on, and maybe she can offer some assistance here.
Hi, good morning. It's Angie Lyle. I'm sorry I can't get my camera to work, but I am online and was paying attention and did want to just chime in and say there was a Zoom meeting that we all attended as part of the Waldo Community Improvement District. I am the Waldo Tower Neighborhood Association board member that attended that meeting. And, you know, nobody likes self-storage. I agree with Doug on that. It is kind of a hard sell, especially when, you know, we're trying to maintain the diversity of small business in the neighborhood, you know, as we know it. But we also understand the Mako building has been empty for quite some time. It's frequently tagged with graffiti, which involves cleanup from the Waldo CID, and I'm sure that's an expense that we don't necessarily want to have. So, you know, it's just one of those things where you just gonna have to like hope that it's going to work out. Now, the neighbors that we've told about it, because we do have a membership list that we sent out to about 600 people. We had a few people that did write and ask us about large trucks coming in and off the property, whether or not that was going to be an issue, especially coming in off of Warnell or driving through the neighborhood streets, which is 73rd Terrace and 73rd Street. And on Saturdays, especially 73rd, can get pretty nasty because everybody's trying to get out of Sutherland's. And so if there's a large truck trying to get in and out of there, that could be an issue. So that was raised. We had a public meeting that we talked about this on just this last Saturday, and that was raised during that meeting. So I believe somebody was going to ask for a traffic study, but I don't know that it would warrant a full traffic study. I know those are pretty involved, but I do think that it was worth a discussion, and just making sure that there's a plan in place for that type of traffic. And other than that, I think that was really the worst, you know, part about it. I think for the most part, we're just going to be okay with it. Sorry not to be excited about it, Doug, but you know, it's self-storage.
I think that's about the best I could have asked for, to tell you the
Okay.
truth. So,
Okay.
so in terms of the truck, I mean, our view is that the north side of this property is where Central tees going south, and so our sense is that the more I want to call it commercial traffic. It's not really, you know, you don't see 18-wheelers. What you see is panel vans and things like that. That you know, we all use to move couches, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but they're rented by people that don't necessarily know how to drive those large trucks.
I understand. You know, it's a city street. I mean, Central is an improved street. It tees right into the property. There's no real, what you call it, you know, crazy geometric turns to make. And so, from our perspective, it's, again, you know, just not an issue in our experience in other locations.
Okay. Any other questions here for the applicant on this?
I had one follow-up question because I feel like everyone's sort of at either two ends of the spectrum. They, you know, would like something more vibrant, or are sort of resigned to something that is, we all acknowledge, is less vibrant for the city. I guess I'm just wondering, I don't necessarily see an issue with self-storage. I see the need for sure. But if there's any opportunity, and maybe it's not this project, but I'd be curious either from the staff or from Doug speaking on behalf of his client, of an opportunity for mixed use, because I think if you could incorporate either retail or office on that just sliver that abuts the trolley trail, you'd really be able to activate the street in a lot of ways without losing the needed use for the neighborhood. Is that something that your client has pursued in some of their other facilities?
I would have to ask them, but my sense is, well, I guess the answer is no. I've gotten an answer. The answer is no, they haven't done that in other facilities. This isn't the kind of use where people hang around. It's light industrial in nature. My client just said to me, less than 5% of their customers even use trucks, that are beyond a pickup. Now, I'll tell you this, we have said to the neighbors that we would be willing to have discussions about the west facade, which is the facing the trail, for some sort of neighborhood, mural, if we wanted to do something else with the screening. Our goal would be to activate the trail with some kind of art. And we have said that we are open to that and want to have those discussions. So, we are sensitive to the fact that we are one of our facades faces the trail. Look, we want the neighborhood to be our customer.
Mhm.
So that's what we do. Most of our customers come from a 6-block radius or 8-block radius, I think. So, one other thing, my client just texted me. In this day and age, with things the way they are, about 10 or 12% of our customer base is actually local small business who are in the middle of either they want to downsize their shop or they don't want to put storage in the back and they use us for storage and things like that. So there's both a residential and neighborhood commercial service that we do provide. So,
I mean, from my perspective, I don't think I necessarily need to be convinced of the need. I think there's a lot of homes, myself included, that you need that extra storage and it makes it more functional, as well as businesses. As you mentioned, a lot of the business storefronts don't have a ton of storage as well. I just am looking for opportunities, and maybe it's not this one, but I'm looking for opportunities where we can have both, because that is happening all over the country, where you see self-storage popping up, but it's not necessarily losing the street vibrancy. It's up on the upper floors, because a lot of these self-storage have moved to more of a elevator-based system anyway. So just looking for opportunities to find either the way we zone it, or just maybe the client seeing that as a need too.
right. All I would say, ask you to keep in mind is that really this is a use that gets about 8 or 10 cars a day, and I'm not sure a retail use could be sustained on that. And I'm not sure you and I would go get our coffee at the. You don't have any pedestrian access from the trail, so I mean I understand your point. I'm just not sure this is the right.
I mean, I guess I just see opportunities to have pedestrian access to the trail. So whatever that is, you could provide that, and then you're not looking for car traffic, you're looking for bike traffic and pedestrian traffic to serve those uses. So not necessarily something we're going to be able to solve today, particularly if this is by right, but just wanted to raise that it doesn't have to be a binary between a use that's completely inactive versus one that is. So
I think that's an interesting idea. I bet you my clients taking notes, because they are like to be on the cutting edge. So I'm sure they're considering that. But I think at this point, between our seller saying, when are you guys ready to close, and not to be a jerk about it, but the fact that we could have done this without coming to you, and so we hope you will support this.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? So let's move on. Are there any other folks from the public that would like to speak regarding docket items C1, C2, or C3?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Given that the case C1 has some items to it, that maybe we close all testimony then and speak amongst the commission before we make a motion on those 3 cases, please. Anything anybody wants to add on this?
Yeah, I do appreciate that the applicant came to us. I totally understand that this is allowed based upon the zoning. I cannot imagine a 47-foot structure coming up next to the trolley trail. I think it'll be the tallest structure except for the apartments that are on 75th Street. So I won't be supporting it just because I have the ability to not support it. So totally understand why it's allowed by right. And I think it's unfortunate though, because I don't think it's right for this part of the city.
I would, the activation part just is really important to me. And we should be looking towards what these places look like 15, 20 years from now, and putting something up that is hard to take down and put more people there. It seems like a missed opportunity. So I won't be supportive of C1.
Okay, anybody else have any comments on this? For me, I understand the two commissioners' concerns of what the actual use is. It's hard to put one of these things in any location, but given the zoning and what's surrounding it, I am in support of this project. So if there's no other discussion, I'll take a motion from one of the commissioners, please. And this is for all three cases, C1, C2, and C3. Actually,
We take C1 separately.
yeah, I think we need to take C1 separately and then do C2 and C3.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve C1.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item C1. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
No.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
No,
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like docket item C1 passed 6-2. So with that, we'll move on to docket item C2 and C3.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your time and consideration, all of you, actually. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for going through this method and making sure you got the neighborhood involved in it. So that's a good move.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve cases C2 and C3. Is that what we've got there?
Okay.
Second.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket items C2 and C3. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like that motion passes 8-0. So thank you for everybody on those projects and good luck moving forward with them. With that, Joe, let's move to our regular agenda, beginning with the cases that will be continued to a future meeting.
All right. First continuance we have is docket item 1, case number SUP 2021-00092. A request to approve a special use permit for Quick Trip located at the northeast corner of Northwest 90th and North Green Hills Road. The applicant is requesting continuance to February 1st. Staff recommends without fee. Next continuance is docket item 5. I'm going to ask Shu to jump in here with the recommended date because this is different from the agenda. Docket 5, case number CPC 2021-00208, a request to approve an amendment to a previously approved preliminary development plan in District MPD for 9700 North Oak. Shu, can you give us
Thank you,
the continuance date?
Yep, I will. We received the request from the applicant early this morning or late last night. And by the way, happy holidays, everyone. So they requested to continue this to March the 1st. to allow them to make revisions based off the feedback they had from the neighborhood meeting and the work in progress that they had with the council members. And staff recommend continue to March 1st without fee.
Okay,
Thank you, Shu. The next continuances are docket items 6.1 and 6.2. 6.1 is case number CPC 2021-00223, request to rezone from AGR and District M2-3 to District M2-3 on about 61 acres at the southwest corner of I-435 in North Congress. And docket item 6.2, case number CPC 2021-00210, a request to approve a development plan, which also serves as a preliminary plat at the same location to allow for construction of 3 industrial buildings. Applicant is requesting continuance to February 1st. Staff recommends without fee. Next one is docket item 7, case number CPC 2021-00216. Request to approve a rezoning from District AGR and District R7.5 to District MPD, which also serves as a development plan that acts as a preliminary plat on about 152 acres on the south side of Northwest 100th between North Green Hills Road on the west and Plat Purchase Drive on the east to create a total of 468 residential lots. The applicant is requesting a continuance to February 1st. Staff recommends without fee. The next one is docket item 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. Starting with 8.1, case number CPC 2021-00192. A request to approve an amendment to the Shoal Creek Valley Area Plan to change the recommended land use at the southwest corner of Northeast 96th and I-435. Staff recommends continuance to February 1st without fee. Docket item 8.2, case number CPC 2021-00190, a request to approve a rezoning from District R80 to District AGR to allow for horticultural services use on 3 acres at the same location. Staff recommends continuance to February 1st without fee. Docket item 8.3, case number CPC 2021-00191, a request to approve a development plan for the horticultural services use on about 3 acres at the same location. And again, on this one, staff is recommending continuance to February 1st without fee. Next continuance is docket item 13. Case number CPC 2021-00156, a request to approve a development plan in District M1-5 to allow for 2 principal structures on 1 lot pursuant to section 88-517-02-F on about 14 acres at the southeast corner of Booth Avenue and East US 40 Highway. The applicant is requesting continuance of this case to February 1st. Staff recommends without fee. And that is all of our continuances, Mr. Chair.
what about docket item number 14?
I'm sorry. Docket item 14, case CPC 2021-00211. A request to consider rezoning of 32 acres from District B4-2, B3-2, R-2.5, and R-5 to District UR Urban Redevelopment to approve a preliminary development plan, which also serves as a preliminary plat for mixed-use development, including multifamily residential, office, retail, and commercial on about 32 acres, located on both sides of Prospect on the north side of 36th Street. The applicant is requesting continuance of this case to February 1st, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any questions from the commission on the continuance of all these docket items? If you need, I can read them all again.
So the only 2 that are different from the docket are 5, which is March 1st without fee, and 13, which is February 1st without fee.
You got it. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, seeing no questions, we'll go ahead and open it up for public testimony. If there's anybody from the public that would like to discuss the continuance of docket items 1, 5, 6.1, 6.2, 7, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 13, and 14, please raise your hand and you will be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising it.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and close public testimony then. If Somebody'd like to make the motion on the continuance of these cases? I would sure appreciate it.
Chair Crow, I move to.
Chair, sorry, Janice, someone raised their hand right after I said that.
Okay,
Do you want me to promote them?
yeah, might as well, since there's a lot of cases here.
Okay, Janice Preswodick, I'm promoting right now. Please
Okay.
accept the promotion.
Hi, good morning, Janice. As you bring yourself off of mute and want to address the commission, can you please state your name and address for the record? Can't hear you. Hi, Janice. I'm not able to hear you here. I see you're off mute, but for some reason your microphone's not working. You're back on mute again. No. Yeah, still can't hear you. No. So just to let you know, maybe can help you out here, the docket items that we just opened and read, they are all going to be continued to a future date as stated in there. So if you have a comment or something on those particular, one of those cases, come back and meet us on the date at which it'll be reheard. Okay. All right. So Commissioner Baker, go ahead.
Chair Crow, I move to continue docket items 1, 6.1, 6.2, 7, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 14 to the date listed on the docket. And I move to continue docket item 5 to March 1st without fee, and docket item 13 to February 1st without fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion.
Second,
All right, so I've got a motion and a second. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Mhm. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crow,
Aye.
Enders,
aye.
Hill, Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes 8-0 for continuance of those docket items. Okay, so with that, let's go back to docket item number 2 and get started.
Docket item 2, case number SUP 2021-00088. Request to approve a special use permit to allow the expansion of the McDonald's at 5347 Independence Avenue, which is on about 1 acre at the same location. Andy Clark is our staff planner.
Good morning, Chairman Crowell and fellow commissioners. And I believe we have Doug Ubin and Jim Markey from McDonald's.
I've asked them to accept promotion.
Thank you. Okay, this is docket number 2. It is a special use permit for the McDonald's at 5347 Independence Avenue. This is located in the historic Northeast on Independence Avenue. Here it is located at the southwest corner of Hardesty and Independence Avenue. And you can see in the yellow, that is the boundary for the Independence Corridor overlay. And that is why that this addition or this project is being heard by you today. It requires a special use permit for any drive-through facilities. The McDonald's has been here, I know, over 20 years. Here is a site plan showing an addition on the west end of the existing McDonald's. They are adding 549 square feet to the front of their house. It will expand the lobby and indoor seating. A few years back, McDonald's purchased the properties directly to the west. So they are going to be enhancing pedestrian and vehicular circulation. As you can see, they are moving the turning lane on from, or the ingress and egress from Independence Avenue farther away from the intersection at Hardesty and Independence Avenue. They're also adding additional parking spaces. Along with this project, they're going to be enhancing the existing landscaping. Currently on the west, there is no landscaping. So McDonald's has worked with staff to provide more landscaping and meet code. Here are the elevations. As you can see in the darker black and gray is the 549 square foot addition. The transparency and materials meet what is required in the Independence Corridor overlay. And the special use permit review criteria, like I said, it complies with the overlay. The applicant has worked and went to the Likens neighborhood to present their project, and the neighborhood supported this use. It's compatible with the existing uses along Independence Avenue. It does not expand the drive-through area, and the applicant does not plan to increase their vehicular traffic, but they want to improve the circulation for vehicles and pedestrians at this site. Staff recommends approval with conditions, and that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. And good morning to you as well. Any questions from the commission to city staff regarding this docket item number 2?
So just to confirm, Andrew, they're not doing anything about the drive-through lanes that are currently there. They're doing no improvements to those. It's just an expansion to the west.
That's correct. They are not touching the drive-through lanes. They're still following what was originally required of them from a 2014 Board of Zoning adjustment case that also went through the CPC. So they are not touching the drive-through. They are focusing on the lobby on the west side of the building and adding more parking, which will also help enhance the circulation at this site, since it's a pretty busy site.
And the exit site, that's basically one way onto Hardesty from the location, they're not doing anything to that either. It's all just to the west.
That's correct. That is not
Okay.
affected with this project. The main driveway is the one that's on Independence Avenue that's moving farther to the west.
Okay, just to confirm. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from the commission to city staff? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant. Welcome, Mr. Markey and Mr. Oven.
Morning, Chair. Andy did a great job of kind of doing a great overview of this application. Like Andy said, it's just really trying to take advantage of this property that McDonald's been able to purchase to the west, expand their dining room. It's a 15-foot bump out addition to the west, improve circulation around the site, add a little more parking. And really with that, we just ask for your approval.
Okay, and you've seen all the conditions and okay with those?
Yes, we're okay with all the conditions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the commission to the applicant then?
I just have one from what I just heard. So this is a corporately owned location, or is this a franchisee owned location?
No, this is a franchisee owned local business owner
Okay,
that owns and operates its restaurant.
so thank him for staying in the area and improving his property.
Very good. Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Okay, any other questions from the commission to the applicant? So at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 2, please raise your hand and you will be called upon.
Mr. Chairman, no one's raising their hand.
All right, thank you. So we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else you'd like to add, applicants, before we make a motion on this case?
No.
No.
All right, so we'll go ahead and close all public testimony then and just speak amongst the commissioners. If there's nothing to discuss, I'll take a motion, please.
I move to approve docket item 2 with conditions.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 2 with conditions stated. Lisa, can you take a roll call, please, on that motion?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley. I don't see you on here.
Where'd she go? Okay,
Oh, I see her. Commissioner Beasley.
I think she froze up.
Oh, it's frozen. Okay. Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
And
I see you.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like the motion is approved 8-0. Thanks for bringing it in and keeping that McDonald's going. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate your support.
Yep.
Am I still frozen?
Nope, not now.
Oh, okay.
All right, Joe, let's go ahead and move on to docket item number 3, please.
Okay, the next one is case number SUP 2021-00054. Request to approve a special use permit to allow for a short-term rental in District R 7.5 at 9818 Summit Street. Jared Clements is the staff planner.
Good morning, commissioners. Let me quickly share my screen. Second here. Can you all see that?
Yep, got it.
Sorry, I have a new desk set up, so I wanted to make sure the monitor was all correct there. All right, before us, we have docket item number 3. This is case number SUP 2021-00054, located at 9818 Summit Street. The zoning is R-7.5. The applicant is seeking approval of a special use permit to allow for the continued operation of an owner-occupied short-term rental. This application is necessary because in any R7.5 or R10 zoning districts in the city, those were specifically called out in the zoning ordinance, prohibiting short-term rentals unless the property has had a short-term rental on it since prior to the adoption of the ordinance, as is the situation in this case. This is also, there was a companion case to this that only went to the BZA. It was an appeal regarding the home being viewed as a single family residence versus 2 family residence. And the appeal was in favor of the applicants, hence why this application is before us today. So this is the subject site. It is in the Red Bridge area plan. This is a little bit closer view of the subject site there. So these are the key points of the application. It's an owner-occupied short-term rental. The applicants live in the subject site. Been in operation since prior to the adoption of the STR ordinance. Other than the applicant's materials, staff has not received any letters from or comment from surrounding neighbors. The conditions are the typical STR SUP that we see, to renew the SUP every 3 years, and they must keep the registration up to date. The staff recommends approval with conditions as listed in the conditions, corrections, and recommendation report. With that, I will conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commission to city staff regarding docket item number 3?
So they had to go to BZA to define that their house was not, or their property was a duplex essentially.
They had code enforcement or development compliance had interpreted their house as being set up as a duplex, but that decision was overturned by the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
So it's a single family home and they rent out a room, correct?
Yep, they rent out the lower floor.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant. Good morning, Ms. Jensen.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the City Plan Commission. Joe or Jared, I think Ron and Cindy Wheeler are online. I don't know if you've promoted them yet or not. Jared, do you have my presentation I emailed you, or do you just want me to share it?
You're welcome to share your screen. I did receive your email though. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, can you all see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let me go through this briefly and then we can answer any questions. My client has had a number of contacts with all of the adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the site and has not received any objection. And in fact, most have signed a petition to support our request. So you'll see that in this materials. Again, Ron and Cindy Wheeler request that the City Plan Commission recommend approval to the Board of Zoning Adjustment for a special use permit to operate a type 1 short-term rental at the Wheelers' primary residence located at 9818 Summit. And as Jared stated, the companion case, the companion BZA case that was decided on December 14th and concluded that their property was a single family residence and not a duplex. I will just say as a bit of commentary, it was very unusual, that appeal, to say that their single family home was a duplex simply because they had a kitchen facility in the basement of their home. Many of our homes have second kitchens. So Jared's identified the location of the property. You can see that the Wheelers live on a very large lot with a very large buffering and treed area surrounding it. Again, it's zoned R.75. This is a picture of the front of the Wheelers' home. The property history is it was built in 1988 by the Wheelers themselves. And it's located on about a little over a half-acre tract of land. There is one main entrance, there is one address, there is one utility meter for each utility service. And again, it was determined to be a single family home by the BZA. A little bit about the Wheelers themselves. Ron works as an illustrator. He writes and illustrates a 20-year comic strip that spreads God's truth, has sold over 50 million copies of cartoon tracts, created countless illustrations for Sunday school curriculum, BBS, and other publications, and hosts one-on-one discipleship and small group activities at their home. Ron operates out of a office in his home. And then the basement that we're talking about is used for personal use about 82% of the time. Beginning in March of 2017, the Wheelers operated the short-term rental through the Airbnb platform, and it is used about 18% of the time. It only permits a portion of the basement to be used as the short-term rental. I'm going to go through a series of photos just so you can get an idea of the home and the stairs. People enter from the front door of the home to access the basement floor. You can see that this is the first floor. There's only one washer dryer area in the home, and it's used exclusively by the Wheelers. This is their second floor, which is their personal residence, and the photo to the right is Ron's office. Again, there's photos of the office area, both Ron and Cindy's office area. These are the basement photos. You can see a basement recreation, common living area with the bedroom and the small kitchen facility in the basement. This is the basement floor plan. Less than 50% of the downstairs area is used as the Airbnb. Short-term rental, it qualifies as a short-term rental per the city's code requirements, and that is shown on the screen. The bottom of this picture shows that the first receipt from Airbnb is dated March 23rd, 2017, prior to the adoption of the short-term rental ordinance in 2018. These are the code review criteria. We believe we comply with all of these code review criteria. And we've checked the box. We've gone through each of them and have checked the boxes. This, I think you'll find interesting, is the petition in support of the Wheeler short-term rental use. You can see the pin part as to the subject property, and then all of the pins represent the adjacent property owners or surrounding property owners within 300 feet that have signed the petition in support. The short-term rental use, we believe, is compatible with the character of the area. There's no adverse impacts in the operation of the short-term rental use. And it's limited in terms of the number of guests they can host due to size constraints, and limited in terms of the number of days the activity is conducted. No adverse impacts to pedestrian safety will result. And then we would request that you approve the short-term rental use. We would actually, I know there's a condition in there limiting it to 3 years. We would actually request a approval for a 5-year period of time. It's been operating since 2017 and has not created any issues. And with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing. And Ron and Cindy, if one of you wants to provide any additional comments, now's the time. I can't even see you guys on there.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think Patricia summed it up really well, and I wouldn't have anything to add to that. Okay, thank you. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any. We live here. Let me add this. We live in the house. We greet the guests here. We are here all the time. This isn't one of those Airbnbs where it's a separate location. We greet people that as they come in, we know what their business is, why they're here, and we interact with them throughout their visit. And we also respect their privacy as well by having a designated area for them. So, and we have a 4.99 rating for our Airbnb, and out of a 5.0. We just had one small downgrade because somebody wanted to have blinds on some windows in the winter because they could see the houses across the woods, and that was just a small issue. Other than that, we've gotten a perfect score from people all the way across the board that have stayed here. Okay, thank you.
And with that, we would request your approval, and we would ask for a 5-year approval period.
Okay. Any questions from the commission to the applicant? All right. Jared, your thoughts on a 5-year versus 3-year?
The 3-year limitation is just put there just to ensure that we don't grant a special use permit in somewhere where it's expressly prohibited in perpetuity. I would be comfortable with the 5-year change.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, if there's not any questions from the commission, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 3, please raise your hand and you will be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else, Ms. Jensen?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. So at this time, we'll go ahead and close all testimony and speak amongst the commission. And if there's nothing to discuss, I'll go ahead and take a motion, please.
Are we okay with the 5 years? I am. I think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my biggest complaint with these is that they take up housing, but this is not taking up housing stock for people and it's not having parties. So I'll move to approve docket item 3 with conditions, changing the special use permit to last for 5 years instead of the 3 years.
Okay, yeah, and that's condition number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 3 with modification to condition number 2 from 3 years to 5. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion passes then 8-0 with 5 years instead of 3. Thank you for bringing it in and good luck moving forward.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. So we're on to docket item number 4, and Joe, this is one I need to recuse from. So Kcia, it's all yours. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Joe, you want to introduce the case?
Sure. Case number CPC 2021-00200. Request to approve a development plan to allow for the construction of a regional field office of approximately 145,000 square feet in District Kcia on about 423 acres located at the southwest corner of Northwest 112th and Northwest Prairie View Road. Shu Wood is our staff planner.
Good morning, everyone, again. I'm going to share my screen here in a second. This case in front of you is a development plan request for the General Service Administration Office at Kcia Airport. Here's the general location of the subject site. It's located next to the airport, which is currently under construction and we're so excited for. Here's the more specific details of the location. It's located on the west side of Highway 29 in between Northwest 112th Street to the north and Northwest 104th Street to the south. Currently, the subject site is largely undeveloped with some airport accessory uses. This project is located at the northernmost portion of the site. The applicant is not proposing to purchase or platting this lot. So even though it is just a smaller site compared to this overall site, but this is the overall site. The overall site is currently zoned to Kcia, which is the airport overlay zoning district. Here's the view looking south on Vienna Road, and this is the view looking north on Vienna Road. Currently, there is a fire station 16 on the north side of Vienna Road and a Kcia Police Department building located on the south. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. The north is to your left. It's being rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. So like I mentioned earlier, this property is located on the Vienna Road. By modifying the existing Vienna Road to the west and to the south to accommodate the site. The applicant proposed a L-shaped building for the general office. The office uses about 145,000 square feet. including an annex building. The office building is about 3 stories, with the annex building is of 1 story. The applicant also proposed a fleet lock for tenant parking that's located to the west of the office building, as you can see over here. It is covered, and the applicant also proposed another special parking facility for accommodating 26 parking spaces that's located next to the annex building. The site has 2 exits from Vienna Road. The primary entrance will be from right off Northville Prairie Road and to the Vienna Road, and there is visitor parking of 20 spaces has been provided along Vienna Road, which is a one-way in and one-way out. The second entrance will be also off Vienna Road, but to the west side of the site. The applicant has provided information of the gate. This is a gated property for the security reason, and there will be parking for visitors located on site around the office building as well. The applicant has provided a number of parking spaces of a total of 392, including accessible parking and van parking spaces. And there will be 26 specialty parking, as I mentioned earlier, that's located to the annex building. Here is a landscape plan has been provided by the applicant with the understanding that this is an airport property. The landscape potentiality is limited. So staff has encouraged the applicant to focus on the courtyard and amenity spaces when they designed the landscape around it. As you can see, there is a courtyard has been proposed between the office building and the fleet lot, and the applicant has provided more details for rendering and a sketch for the potential courtyard in the future. And here is the image showing the details of the shrub landscapes and some character images. This is a lighting plan has been provided by the applicant. It generally complies with the code requirement. Here are some building elevations and renderings and details of the building materials. The majority of the building is constructed with precast concrete panels in dark gray, black, and beige colors with some accent aluminum materials. Here are some other elevations from the east and from the west as well. These are some 3D rendering. So staff recommends approval with conditions, and that those conditions are stated in the condition report. That concludes my presentation, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Commissioner to Shu?
So the only question I have, this is like a land lease for the property with the airport. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're leasing the land. They're not purchasing it.
Okay. Cool.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, you heard there was a material that I thought I heard that I'm wondering, is there a glare associated with the stainless steel? Is that what I heard part of the material is?
No, I don't believe there is stainless steel, but I will defer the question to the applicant later. My understanding is there's accent aluminum over there.
So is aluminum conducive to a glare?
From the rendering, I would say no, because the majority of the facade, as you can see with the black and gray and beige color, they're still precast concrete. So I don't think that will create a large glare.
Okay.
That's just my understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Shu.
All right, there are no other questions. Let's welcome the applicant.
I apologize. I have not promoted them yet. I'm promoting them now.
No worries.
The applicant's been promoted. I'm trying to get, sending the messages asking them to unmute. Oh, here they are. It's Haver Walker.
Welcome, Mr. Walker. Are you able to?
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
Oh no, we're just making sure you have your, if you can turn your camera on, that would be great. If not, please state your name and address and any comments that you would like to add.
My name is Hussam Habib with Heifer Walker Architects. We are located in Leawood, Kansas, our office. We don't have any further comments.
Are there any questions? Well, I know there was a question from one of the commissioners about the use of aluminum. Is that a glare?
I think Shu addressed it really good. There is no any glare issue. We're not using any shiny material or polished aluminum in a project. All our material is either dark gray or more muted kind of orange color. So we don't expect any glare issue with that project.
Are there any questions to the applicant?
I had a question if you were seeking LEED certification, and if so, what level?
We are seeking Green Globe, 2 Green Globe attribute to this project. We are not, the government are not seeking LEED. Green Globe is equivalent to the LEED rating. We are seeking 2 Green Globe. That's kind of equivalent to the LEED certificate.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, well, let's open it up for public comment. If you would like to provide testimony, please raise your hand. Joe, let us know if there's been anyone who's raised their hand.
No one's raising their hand, Madam Chair.
All right, so since no one is raising their hand, we'll close public testimony at this time. Mr. Walker, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, you've had a chance to review the corrections and the conditions and you're okay with those?
Yes.
Okay, well, this time we'll just discuss if there's any other comments, commissioners, that you would like to give voice to. If not, we'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept case number, I lost it, 00200 as listed with conditions as stated.
Second.
All right, is there moved and second? Lisa, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Mr. Walker. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
All right, Kobe.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to docket item number 9, please.
Docket item number 9 is case number CPC 2021-00230. A request to approve a rezoning from District B1-1 to District B2-1 on half an acre located at 2415 Northeast Vivian Road. Anna Namaskis, our staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. My apologies. Also, new desk setup system, so I'm just making sure everything's running smoothly. Okay, docket item number 9 focuses on 2415 Northeast Vivian Road. Currently, the property is zoned B1-1, and they are proposing to rezone it to B2-1 to allow for the development of a drive-through coffee shop. The site is located in the northern portion of Kansas City, kind of near Gladstone. The subject property is highlighted in yellow on the screen. It is this triangle shaped parcel at the corner of Northeast Vivian Road and North Antioch Road. And the very northern portion of the property is subject to the rezoning. They are not proposing to rezone the whole site. A Red Rocks thrift store and Planet Fitness is currently operating in the big commercial building located on the site. This is a close-up of the proposed plan associated with this request. As you can see, they are just looking to section off a small portion of the very top part of the triangle to locate the drive-through facility. This is the review criteria associated with the rezoning. I want to note a couple of items, including A and B. This is in conformance with the neighborhood plan. Actually, the neighborhood plan proposes a more intensive zoning than the proposal. So it aligns quite well, and the area is also very commercial in nature. There are drive-throughs in the surrounding area, as well as a gas station and some automotive repair shops. So a drive-through coffee facility is not more intensive. I recommend approval, and I have made an error. I was not supposed to include a CCR report attached with this type of case. The condition in question is just associated with the minor subdivision that needs to accompany this type of request. This type of request for the minor subdivision to accompany the rezoning moving forward to City Council. This is just to help support their intent behind the rezoning. You know that it is not for the entire use. It is just to facilitate a very small commercial use. And they are actually proposing not to do a minor subdivision anymore. It's going to be a preliminary plat and final plat. And that is also to accommodate a request from the Public Works Department to require some right-of-way near the site, but the applicant will also speak more to that. So that concludes my staff report.
Okay, so just understand, minor subdivision is not needed. It's just going to be a preliminary and final plat for this?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission to city staff?
Anna, there was a comment by the neighbourhood committee. Do you know what that was and whether that's been incorporated into the plan at this point in time?
Yeah, 1 second. Let me pull up the staff report. There is no formal neighborhood association tied with this request or with this site, but the neighborhood association did still reach out to the Northland Neighborhoods Inc. Their email is on the attached to the staff report, and they were just in generally supportive of the proposed project.
Yeah, I saw that, but there was I think a comment by them, and the applicant said they didn't think there was a problem. I just wanted to know what the comment was from that neighborhood. Maybe I can ask the applicant.
I do not know the details. I believe the applicant will be able to answer that question.
Right, thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm not crazy about drive-throughs. I'll just say that. So whenever we do a drive-through, I feel like I want to understand why that use is what the neighborhood wants. And I guess I'm trying to understand, in your analysis, you said that it is a less intensive use than a mixed use community land use. Not knowing all the details of the mixed use community other than what is stated here, it seems like it's a less favorable use to do a drive-through versus a more vibrant mixed use neighborhood that might offer pedestrian access and other things like that. So I guess I'm just trying to understand the word intensity and whether that is really the goal we're trying to get here, because intensity implies that the more parking spaces, the more drive-throughs, the more low density, the more favorable it is. And I don't necessarily agree with that. So I just want to understand that analysis a little better.
Yeah, the future land use recommends a future land use that is associated with the B3 zoning district, and they're only recommending B2, and a drive-through is first allowed in the B2 zoning district. And that was the intent behind that comment, was to show that they're not jumping from a B1 to a B3. They're doing more of a staggered approach.
Okay. And you feel like that aligns with the greater area plan? Because to me, the area plan represents the neighborhood's interests.
I think that since they are not recommending a B4 or an M, something that would be more intensive than they are recommending, that it is an appropriate request.
Okay.
I have a question about the curb cuts. Are they making use of the existing ones?
Correct.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, any other questions from the commission to staff? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant. Mr. Arling, welcome.
Hello, Martin Arling, Caw Valley Engineering, 8040 North Oak Trafficway, Kansas City, Missouri. And as Anna pointed out, we are requesting a rezoning, and it is in conformance with the area plan. It will eliminate, basically a sea of parking, and it will put in a drive-through area, but the parking or the pavement area will be reduced. And we are reusing the existing drive, so all the improvements are internal. And we had requested of Anna that we go ahead and do a preliminary and final plat because of the right-of-way dedication. We worked through that at our neighborhood, Northland neighborhood group. We had a meeting with them, and that was basically the major discussion. We determined that the additional right-of-way will not impact the site. So we're going to work through that through the preliminary and final plat process. And we did have a separate neighborhood meeting. Nobody did attend, and that's, I believe, in Anna's notes too. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Can you address the one question by Commissioner Allender about reaching Mr. Vasquez from the city?
Oh yeah. The comment from the Northland neighborhood group was Mario Vasquez had talked about the right of way, and worked with him already. We've exchanged some documents and worked with the city's engineer, I believe it's Olson, and we've overlaid it. It's just dedication of right of way. Doesn't impact us. Our project will not impact the cities. And to get also want to comment on the walkability. I believe there's a trail that's going to go through there. There is a component of this. There is no sit down inside, but there's outdoor areas to sit. There will be a pedestrian access to that trail and to the existing sidewalk that's there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission to the applicant? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 9, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Arling, on this?
Nope. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and close all testimony then and speak amongst the commission. If there's nothing to discuss, I'll take a motion, please.
Chair Corral, I move to approve docket item number 9, revising condition number 1 to remove the condition of a minor subdivision and instead adding a preliminary plat before council and final plat after.
Okay.
Second.
So I've got a motion and a second as stated. Lisa, can you take a roll call, please?
Mhm. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas. I don't. And Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion then passes 7-0. We appreciate you bringing it in and good luck moving forward. Okay, that takes us, is everybody doing okay right now? I'm fresh, ready to go. Gone to the restroom. All right, let's move on to docket item number 10 then.
Okay, we have 3 companion cases here. 10.1 is case number CPC 2021-00183. Request to amend the Midtown Plaza area plan on approximately 2 acres in District R2.5, R5, and P3-2, located on the west side of Bell between 39th Street on the north and 40th Street on the south, to change the recommended land use from medium density residential and medium high density residential to residential urban. Docket item 10.2, case number CPC 2021-00181. A request to rezone the same piece of land from districts R2.5, R5, and B3-2 to district R-0.3 to allow for the construction of an apartment building. And docket item 10.3, case number CPC 2021-00184, a request to approve a development plan, which also serves as a preliminary plat to allow for the construction of a 223 unit apartment building at the same location. Anna Naniski is the staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. As mentioned, docket item number 10 focuses on a lot near the corner of 39th Street and State Line. The existing zoning is B32, R2.5, and R5, and they are proposing to rezone that whole chunk of property to R0.3. He also mentioned that there are several companion cases, including an area plan amendment, the rezoning, and the development plan, which also serves as a preliminary plat to allow for the use of a apartment building with a small chunk of commercial use. So this property is located in the Midtown portion of Kansas City, 39th Street and State Line, and it is directly adjacent to the KU Med campus that is in KCK. This is a close-up of the subject site. We have State Line Road over to the west. You can see the beginning portion of the KU Med campus also over to the west, 39th Street to the north. There are the commercial corridor with all the restaurants that fronts 39th Street, and the property highlighted in yellow is where the proposed development is going to be located, with one of the existing apartment complexes proposed to remain there along Bell Street. This is a close-up of the site plan produced by the applicant. North is over to my left. There are 2 access points associated with this property. There's also a courtyard with amenities to service the apartment complex. The commercial type area, is located towards the northern portion near 39th Street. You can also see the existing apartment complex on the plan as well. And the parking garage is going to be internal to the site. These are a few of the elevations associated with the property. The top elevation is if you were to be standing on State Line looking towards the building, that is the elevation. And then the east elevation, so if you were standing on Bell looking at the building, you can also see the cutout for the existing apartment complex. The review criteria associated with the rezoning is on the screen. all seem to comply. I want to highlight a few of them, including B and G. This is a very active corridor. There's a similar project that is on the further to the north on the corner of 39th Street and State Line Road, where there's the Panera on the first floor. So we're seeing much more commercial and multifamily uses in the area. And they have gone through a very diligent process with the neighborhood association, and that letter is attached to the staff report as well. So for the following cases, 181, that's associated with the rezoning, staff recommends approval. The area plan amendment, that's 183, recommend approval. And with the development plan, we recommend approval subject to conditions. And some things that have changed since the staff report was initially uploaded to Compass KC. Correction number 1, we have talked to the applicant, and that is going to be resolved before City Council ordinance request. That is just providing some more detail associated with the preliminary plat. Condition number 2 can be removed. This is in association with both of the drives that are off state line. This request did go before TDC last Monday, and they approved the 2 access points being this close together, subject to this access point, which is furthest to the north of the property, is exclusively for commercial use for the tenants along 39th Street to use them for, deliveries and staff and things like that. There will be no customer parking along this access drive. And then correction number 3 also can be resolved prior to City Council ordinance requests. And I believe Gerald Williams, who is our long-range planner, he is also here to speak on correction number 4 because the applicant has some requests associated with that revision as well. And that concludes my staff report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission to city staff?
Yeah, I've just got a couple. Is the accommodation for parking for the commercial area? That parking lot is pretty key to keep, for the other commercial properties for customers. I park there a lot. So just interested in that. And maybe it's one for the applicant. And then the other one I was trying to look at is stormwater management on the property. That area floods down pretty readily on 39th and State Line when there's a heavy rain. So just want to make sure that the property isn't contributing to that, or maybe helping with the flooding down on that 39th and State Line. So they're my 2 questions with regards to parking for the other commercial properties and the stormwater management.
The applicant can speak to more detail about the parking associated with the commercial businesses, and then I'm going to leave the stormwater question up to someone from the Land Development Division. Stacy Lowe is attached to the call.
I'd like to say that I agree with Bruce with the parking. That's one of my favorite restaurants is in that area. So where am I supposed to park, y'all?
This is Stacy. Sorry, Stacy, I was gonna go ahead.
Go ahead, Stacy, please.
This is Stacy Lowe with the Land Development Division. Commissioner Allender, they have only provided a concept of how they will be managing stormwater detention at this point. We have not reviewed the storm drainage study. The concept plan on the utility plan shows an underground detention basin. Beyond that, I do not have any information, and we'll have to ask the applicant to provide additional details if you require it.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission to city staff? All right, so at this time, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant. Good morning, Mr. McGurk. How are you?
Great, sir. Members of the commission, John McGurk with Millhouse Development. With me today, I've got Kcia with 621 Architecture. They've teamed up with Helix Architecture and Design as our architects on this project. I believe Kara's got a presentation on if we're able to share. I know we emailed that as well, but I know Kara's got it pulled up. If we can, there it is. All right. And I'll just answer Commissioner Allender's question right there. As to parking, part of our project is to replace the 125 parking spaces currently in that lot on the first floor of our new parking garage. So there will be commercial parking in our parking garage. We understand how important parking is to those tenants along 39th Street. So we are replacing that parking in our garage. Actually, while that garage is being constructed, we have worked out validated parking with the University of Kansas Hospital across the street. So we will be validating parking until our garage is open. So during construction, they should see minimal disruption from a parking standpoint. The large parking garage is on the other side of State Line, if you know the area. As to stormwater management, we have to detain the first 1.5 inches of rainfall on site. As Stacy indicated, we plan to do that with underground tanks. I believe maybe Lamine with Telfair and Brown is on, but that is the intent, is to design that into the project. It's EPA mandated. We have to do it. We understand that. So that is the plan right now.
And John, is the parking that you're replacing, is that going to be metered or paid parking, or is it going to be for free?
So the intent right now is, if you're familiar with like JJ's or Jack's on the plaza, where if you give your ticket to your waiter or whatever, they can validate it, and you'll get 1.5 hours, 2 hours of parking for those. So that's the system we plan to utilize there, is validated parking for patrons of the restaurants and bars right there. I know Kara's got this up. So Kara, if we just want to start going through this. First, just wanted to indicate kind of the neighborhood engagement process we had. Obviously Volker is a very well-organized and engaged community. We wanted to get to them early and often. So when we just first had our concept plan together, we reached out to the neighborhood board. You can see there, we had our first meeting about a year ago with the neighborhood board, got some feedback from them, came back in early March with some further tweaks. And then the week after that, we actually did a full neighborhood meeting where we got a lot of great feedback. In the meantime, I actually met with a lot of the neighbors one-on-one and in small groups, and got some really great feedback. One thing that really stood out as we did that early engagement was how near and dear to the neighborhood the Scottford building, also known as the Truman building on Bell Street, was to the neighborhood. That was the sixplex that Anna pointed out that is remaining on site. Our initial plan was actually to tear that building down and build a building there. After hearing all that feedback last year, we kind of put a 120-day, 4-month pause on all of our design, and actually went out and were able to acquire 2 of the small houses on the southwest side on State Line that allowed us to wrap the building along State Line back to the east and actually retain that Scottford building. So that early and often engagement with the neighborhood gave us some really great feedback. I think we've got a much better project now as a result of doing that outreach. So we were able to do that. Then we went back to the neighborhood in September and kind of unveiled what we'd been working on, showed them. We also met with a 39th Street CID. And then in November, we held our official required neighborhood meeting. But as you can see, we did a lot of outreach and had a lot of discussions prior to that. And then you can see we're here at January 18th at our planning commission, and hopefully we'll finalize design over the next handful of months and start construction in the summer. Kara, if you want to keep moving forward. This is just the letter we received from Volker. I believe it's in your packets. It really just, I'm pretty proud of it. I think they say we should, how we handled this with the neighborhood should be kind of the standard for engagement with the neighborhood. So I just think that we wanted to highlight this. This is something I'm proud of. They were great partners. They came into it with open minds. We went into it with open minds, and we're able to really kind of work with each other to hopefully find a project that everybody can really be proud of. So Kara, if you want to keep moving. And then here, I'll let Kara take it from here. I just want Kara to kind of walk through the neighborhood context and what we've tried to do with our design. I know most people are probably very, very familiar with this area, as some of you have already indicated. So this may be a little bit of info you already know, but I think it's important. So Kara, do you want to just kind of go through the next few slides?
Yes, good morning. So as John mentioned, the existing context of this neighborhood is very unique to Kansas City, and this site in particular is very unique. So just wanted to walk through quickly some of our thoughts behind what developed the design for the project. So these are some images of the 39th Street retail restaurant corridor, De Bronx, and this street view here really being of our project. Back behind these existing buildings is Jamestown Square, the development that we're planning on. And on the west corner is Jazz and Jimmy's Jigger. So this image here, these images being further east of our project, but again, just giving that context of a very unique, very eclectic nature of Kansas City that we feel should be celebrated. Adjacent to our project to the east is the Volker neighborhood. So very different feel, residential feel with 1, 2, and 3-story homes, single family and some multifamily mixed in between there as well. And the idea of the front porch being very prevalent in this neighborhood, and that weighed heavily into our design as well. Something that the Volker neighborhood is very proud of is the idea of that front porch. And then to our west is KU Med, as Anna mentioned earlier, a very different feel for this area. And again, just adjacent over state line from our project. Much larger scale of projects, different use of materials, and just a very, very different feel. So what that brings us to our site, Jamestown Square, being in the middle of this site plan here. Again, that idea of 39th Street, Volker neighborhood, and KU Med. And we feel like the area plan correctly identified this block as a transition block, really trying to step down the scale of KU Med, and it called out for mixed use along 39th Street. And from the beginning, we established that would be very important to the neighborhood and the residents to maintain those existing structures. So that weighed heavily into the design. But then how do we transition larger scale projects to the west with smaller scale projects to the east? So again, that weighing heavily into the design of our project. So these were the big ideas behind our project very early on. Again, that contextualism, the eclectic neighborhoods, and drawing from those, the idea of weaving together the urban fabric through the different use of scales and materials. Again, that idea of the front porch and how that you will see in our 3D images, how we've incorporated the idea of the front porch into our design. And then connectivity, really enhancing that community connection between both public and private outdoor spaces. So this is the site plan, very similar to one that's in the packet, just showing some color for reference. As mentioned before, we have 223 units on the project, and those units are really wrapping the parking garage. So the parking garage is not viewed, there's no visibility of the parking garage from Bell Street or State Line. That was one item that came up in conversations with the neighborhood groups. Another item that was very important to them is keeping traffic off of the residential Bell Street. So that is why our entrance into the parking garage and exit is along State Line. And as we mentioned before, the parking for the project, we are replacing the 125 spaces that are currently on the site, and then providing parking for each unit, as well as for the Scottford building. Here is that existing building that's to remain, where our project really wraps around on the Scottford building. And then providing some guest parking as well for our multifamily tenants. John, anything else you want to add to the conversation about the site plan here?
I think you covered it.
Another idea that really weighed in heavily to our design is, and feedback that we had received from the community is really that step down quality that's really spelled out in the area plan. So this is a section cut through our site. This is Bell Street here on the left side of the screen, our first wing of our building, what we call the Bell Street wing here. This is through our courtyard, the private courtyard for the multifamily, the State Line wing, and then State Line Road here, and showing the existing context of KU Med to the right here. So the existing parking garage, the Cambridge parking garage, and then the tall tower of KU Med. So it was really important to maintain this, this line of stepping down from KU Med down to the Volker neighborhood. The image below is really a blow up of this area, our specific site. So again, Bell Street on the left, and those homes are raised up a little bit on Bell Street. And then our view of the Bell Street wing. Bell Street is a 4-story structure where the top story steps back to create more of the look and feel of a 3-story structure along Bell Street. The courtyard has, because of the grade, the existing grade, it falls away from Bell Street. We're able to add an additional story in the courtyard. So the backside of Bell Street is a 5-story structure, and then State Line Road is both sides is a 5-story structure.
So a quick question. It's a 4-story, and then the Scotland building is a 6-plex. So I'm guessing the Scotland building is just 1 story shorter than the Bell Street.
Correct. So
okay.
this is,
I was going to say, Kara, if you could go to the image, you can kind of see here, Commissioner, that Scottford building actually kind of goes up above our 3rd story a little bit. So our building's just a little bit taller than the Scottford building.
Okay.
So this is a view along Bell Street of the proposed development. You're south of our project, looking back towards 39th Street up here on this side of the screen. And the trees are removed for clarity for this image. We were also showing an image with the trees. So that is another item that the neighborhood had voiced concern about, is the existing trees along Bell Street. We did a tree study to assess the conditions of those existing trees. And while that report did not, I think there's one tree that they did not have concerns about. The stance that the development is taking is that they will protect those trees during construction and try to maintain those throughout construction, but are also holding contingency for replacement of those trees. And then this is the State Line view. You're down at 39th Street looking south along State Line. So again, the main entry and lobby to the development being adjacent to Jazz on the northwest corner of the project. And that's what we had for presentation of design ideas. And we did have, Anna went through some of the clarifications on the conditions. One thing that I would add on, let's see, it's item number 2 that the Transportation Committee reviewed last week. I think, Anna, you had mentioned that the service alley, you go back to the site plan here, the service alley here would be only used for the retail. It would also be used for our development for trash, but that it would be limited to smaller vehicles. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah, the one condition Transportation Development Committee made on that alleyway is there would not be semi-truck traffic in that alley. And that will be signed, which most of the delivery trucks for the retail along 39th, those are the smaller box truck delivery type vehicles. And if you're familiar with the area at all, most of the time those are parking in 39th Street currently. So we think that alleyway is really going to improve the form and function of that whole intersection. One, it allows them to service those buildings from the back, but it gets those box trucks off of 39th. And frankly, sometimes you see them on Bell Street blocking the entire one-way south on Bell Street. So I think relocating that. The problem with the access now is the current access is just a little bit north of our garage access, but you pull in there and then you immediately have to either turn north or south, so a 90-degree turn. So really, delivery trucks have a really hard time accessing that parking lot because cars are parked there and it's just really tight corners. So we think that access alley will really help those commercial tenants service their shops a lot better. But I think, yeah, Kara alluded to the conditions. I think we're in agreement with all the conditions with the exception of the 3 that Anna referenced. I think the condition number 2 can be removed since that's been approved by Transportation Development Committee. And then I believe 3 and 4 were both ones that I think if Bo Williams is on can speak to, but those are pedestrian access to the units along Bell Street. So we have agreed with staff with Bo that we will modify our plan to have walk-ups along Bell Street on the first floor. And then we will replace some lighting on State Line as well. That was a condition that Bo had. Oh, there's Bo. I'll let Bo speak for himself. Sorry.
Really have anything, you covered it pretty well, Joan. I don't really have anything to add to that other than we'll work through these details in the next submittal before City Council.
Okay.
With that, we will answer any questions.
Just a statement here, Kcia, can you take over on this case, please? I need to recuse.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions for the applicant?
Can I go back to the parking just a minute?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
had mentioned visitor parking. So is that going to be addressed the same as those customers going to the commercial businesses? How are they have access and payment to use the garage?
That's a good question, Commissioner. We may have the first 10 spaces as you come into the garage open and signed very prominently that those are for visitor parking to the apartments only. Otherwise, there would be a validation system similar to the commercial tenants.
So as a visitor, I would be charged an hourly rate to visit someone?
No, they would be a validation system similar to the commercial tenants, or they would be before the gate opened. So, you'd have tenants, signs that would say visitor parking only. If you're not visiting, you'd be towed. That's just one item we need to work through as to how that visitor parking will actually function.
So can we go back to one of the previous slides? I'm still a bit confused as to where you enter the garage.
So where that double arrow
is,
Commissioner, that is the entrance into the garage. And you go underneath the building into the structured parking garage behind it.
So then to come out as a pedestrian, where do I go?
There will be there'll be multiple exits. There will be a path along that driveway out to State Line. There will be a path on the north side. You can kind of see a sidewalk on that northeast. Yep, right there. You can see a sidewalk that goes out. And then if you're like those buildings there there's alleyways between them. So you could access through that pedestrian way onto the sidewalk and access and go through between the buildings up to the 39th Street side.
So that last one you just showed me would take me to Bell, so I could get to Genghis Khan from there.
You could either go right and go over to Bell, or you could turn left and go, yes, where kind of the cursor is. If you can see where she's
Yeah, I
going.
see it. I'm following it. Thank you.
So that'd be a sidewalk with a slight slope going down. And then Cadence, who is retaining ownership of the commercial, is looking at kind of a courtyard area between kind of where those two buildings are. Yep, right there. Right now, that's kind of back of house. There's a dumpster on the side of Genghis Khan. There's some grease barrels back there as well. There's it's really back of house back there.
Yeah, but that's not part of y'all's obligation. Those are other property owners, right?
Correct, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We will have access easements back and forth across that, so we'll be able to walk through there and utilize it. But you're correct, it is a separate ownership.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions. Super impressive project. It's really nice to see all the thought and intention that went into the design. In terms of the number of units and parking spaces, are most of these intended to be 1 bedroom or studio, or will you also have 2-bedroom units?
There will be, that's a great question. There will be studio / junior 1-bedrooms. All of our studios are kind of a dark 1-bedroom. So a lot of people call those junior 1-bedrooms. So studio 1s and 2s. There will be 2s in here as well. But the vast majority of the units are 1 and studios and 1s.
Okay. And then you answered one of my other questions in saying that Cadence is going to retain ownership of the commercial properties. What will the contractual relationship be between Cadence and the commercial access for commercial parking spots?
They have easements, right? They have easements on them.
I don't, and so forgive me, I don't know how easements work. So is that like an indefinite thing? Does it get renewed every decade?
No, it will be, it is a property right that runs with the property.
Gotcha.
So it will be essentially in perpetuity.
Cool. Thank you very much. As I said, super impressive project.
Thank you.
So can I come back for a moment? On the Bell Street rendering, you showed brick and it appears to be the concept for the porches. What do I not see on the state line side? It's a different material, but I didn't think I saw anything that related to a porch concept.
So the porch concept, and Kara, I'll let you jump in here, but the porch concept is really emphasized on Bell Street. You're correct, Commissioner. On the state line side, all buildings, all units will have balconies, but it is more of an outboard balcony, not a porch type concept.
So, the who's doing the curses? So like that third row, come back toward Jazz, or the entry, and that first row that looks like it's bumped out, those are the balconies then, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yep,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And really the nature of State Line is very different than Bell Street. The balconies, the units start because State Line has so much grade change to it. You can see the balconies right here in relation to the pedestrian figures here. The balconies are pretty high up, and as you get further south, they come down more, but it would be very challenging to provide walk-up porches along State Line. There was also a concern about safety along State Line. It has a very different feel than Bell Street, where Bell Street is more of a residential. So there were some concerns about that as well.
No, that's understandable. I was just looking for the outdoor type amenity that would be similar to having a porch.
Yes.
So now that you pointed it out, it kind of blended into me when we were discussing it. So I'm good.
Okay.
Got a couple of questions. Community, public, private space that you showed on your plans, where is that? And then my second question is, with this development, where are we accommodating bicycle parking or and so forth? Because I think you're taking out a bicycle rack. If I look at this.
I will address the bicycle comment first. The site plan here is showing the short-term bicycle parking. We've got a bank along State Line here, and I believe this one might be the B-cycle program that we're replacing that's existing about right at this location now. And then along Bell Street, there's also a location here. Inside the parking garage, we have the long-term bicycle parking for the residents as well. It doesn't show really in this plan as this is an aerial view, but it would be located kind of right in this area within the parking garage.
And Commissioner, that's where we will have the full bike workstation, because we provide that in all of our projects where people can service their bicycles in that bike room.
Right. Thank you.
And then to address the comment about the, can you actually repeat your first question
Yeah,
again?
I think in one of your plans you showed a community space that was public-private, and I'm just wondering where that is in this plan.
Sure. The private courtyard is located here, which is showing the blue square is representative of the pool and seating around the pool. There's also, this is an extension of that with outdoor seating. And then John had briefly mentioned the idea of the public area here that is hopeful in future plans of Cadence's property. I don't want to speak for them, but that was the idea and concept behind providing more of a public space for the tenants to have some outdoor seating. That's not really an option right now for them. We're also providing, as one of the plan conditions, is some bench seating along the project as well. So there's some bench seating. Don't know if it shows in this plan, but adjacent to the entry along State Line, and then there's also bench seating along Bell Street as well.
It'd be great if we could get some clarity around that community space, because I think it's a good area to look at and repurpose there behind those buildings.
Yeah, understood, and I believe that's Cadence's property. I think their intention is to do that. I can't provide you timeline and all that, as that's not part of our property, but I know that they are working on that and have concepts, but I can't speak to timing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? Right, hearing that,
When do you anticipate starting?
Hopefully this summer. I'd suspect July timeframe.
Okay. And how long do you think it's going to take?
Total construction period would be about 24 months. We would hope to have the garage open within 12 months and then continue construction around that. We are designing it to be kind of a standalone building with fire, electrical, all that, so we could get a TCO, so we could start getting people to park in there as quick as we can.
Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that I'm tracking. Mr. McGirt, you asked for some, did you ask for a removal of some conditions or corrections?
I believe 2 can be removed because that had to do with the access entries and Transportation Development Committee. They approved that last week. So I believe that can be removed. But I would.
Mr. Hill, this is Stacy Lowe from Land Development. That's my correction on the plans. They can be removed as part of the next resubmittal by the applicant. I do not have access to the system to remove it prior to that time.
Okay. All right, was 2 the only one, or did I hear you mention 3 and 4?
3 and 4, I believe 4 can be in Bo, if you have language that you are good with on those 2. I think we're in agreement on the concepts. I just want to see if you have language you'd like.
I don't know what the specific language would be, except that we will, staff, the applicant will work with staff to make the requested corrections in a, prior to ordinance submittal to the city council rather, would be generally the approach we're looking for.
So wouldn't that be for all four of them? Correction 1, 2, 3, and 4. I mean, because if we can't remove them until this resubmitted, would that be correct, Joe? Someone?
I believe on Commissioner, I believe on 2, I believe you guys could remove 2 if you wanted to.
Okay.
I believe in if the city attorney's on, Sarah, if you please correct me if I'm wrong here. But I believe on 3, we would suggest revising that just to say that we would provide decorative pedestrian lighting to be incorporated on the north edge of the property from the parking garage. And I think the reason for that was I believe Bo wanted us to replace some decorative lighting that is currently on site. So we will replace that. And then on 4, I think the idea is we would just work with Bo to incorporate walk-ups along Bell Street only, not state line.
Commissioner Baker, I think the confusion arises because staff cannot physically change the corrections in the software until a new review is created. But we, as in our group, will take note of anything you guys change and make sure that occurs with the corrections when they do resubmit. So to answer your question, yes, you can change the corrections and the wording or eliminate them, and then we will document that and make sure that happens when this project goes through its final round of review.
Sounds good.
All right, are we all, everybody's good with that? Okay. So there are no further questions from commissioners. Let's open it up for public testimony. If you would like to speak on this docket item, please raise your hand.
Madam Chair, no one is raising their hand.
All right, seeing that no one's raising their hand, we'll close public testimony. Any other comments by commissioners? If not, I'll take a motion.
I just want to say this, I think this is a good project. I appreciate the thought, especially with the garage and the walk-ups on Bell, or not even the walk-ups, just the design on Bell. I think this is going to be a great project for the area. Although that parking lot is very convenient, it's kind of a dump. And so putting more people there, I think, is a positive. So
I'd like to thank the applicant for the time spent with the neighborhood groups to ensure that they had buy-in to your project. I really do appreciate that. So thank you so much for our additional questions, but I think they vetted you pretty good.
Yeah, and I would second that. Like neighborhood.
Awesome. Who is ever sharing? Can we stop sharing? That way we can see all the commissioners.
Chair, I believe that's you.
Oh,
And then when we were talking through the conditions, for some reason, some of them I wasn't able to follow closely enough. It didn't seem like they lined up, but the numbers lined up. So I won't make the motion, but all of them seem to make sense to me.
I did hear from Joe that we can remove condition number 2. And then I think for 3 and 4, there's language that says applicant will work with staff to make corrections before it proceeds to council. I don't know if that's good enough. Our attorney is on. I want to make sure we have better.
is it correction 1, 2, 3, and 4, not condition?
Yeah, it's correction.
Okay.
I'm tracking.
I can make the motion.
All right, come on, Baker.
I move to approve docket item 10.1 without conditions, docket item 10.2 without conditions, and docket item 10.3 with conditions changing correction 1 to be resolved prior to council and removing correction 2. Correction 3 will be resolved prior to council to include decorative lighting as stated by staff, and also correction number 4 to be resolved prior to council to work with staff to incorporate walk-ups on Bell Street.
There a second?
Really quickly, just to
Second.
clarify, so number 4, for example, that's the one that's about sewer system, but that's also the one about walk-ups. Just want to make sure I'm understanding that. Or am I just looking at the wrong thing?
The 4 that I have, revised plan to show direct pedestrian access.
Okay, great. I think I must be looking at the wrong part. Perfect.
Okay, it's been moved by Baker and second, I think, by Beasley. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Lisa, you call the roll.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
I'm recused on this one, Lisa.
Oh, you are? Okay.
All right, motion passes 6-0. Thank you all so much for this project. We look forward to it. We're excited about it and good luck.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kcia, for taking that over. All right, so we're ready for docket item number 11.
Docket item number 11 is case number CPC 2021-00159. A request to rezone from District B3-2 to District M2 to allow for outdoor storage and to resolve code violations on about 0.17 acres located at 908 East 5th Street. Anna Naniski is the staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, docket item number 11, as Joe mentioned, focuses on 908 East 5th Street. The property is existing zoning is B3-2, and they are proposing to rezone to M2-1. There's a slight typo in my PowerPoint presentation. They are seeking this approval to rezone to allow for outdoor storage on the site in order to resolve a code case. Public engagement is required associated with this. They attempted to have this meeting on January 10th due to an incorrect address that might be on the parcel viewer. That letter never made it to the neighborhood association tied to this case. The applicant will speak more to this hiccup when I conclude my PowerPoint presentation, and property owners within 300 feet were also not notified. So the subject site is south, excuse me, of the river in the Columbus Park neighborhood. The subject site, a close-up of it is highlighted in yellow. You can see it is at the corner of Campbell and East 5th Street. I put the zoning layer on the slide, so you can see that it is zoned B3-2, and some of the surrounding properties are zoned B4, UR. There's a small chunk of M1-5. It is along a commercial corridor along 5th Street, the subject site is. This is a quick table highlighting where outdoor storage is permitted. It is first permitted in the M1 district, and that is accompanying with an SUP, a special use permit, and it is first strictly permitted in the M2 districts, thus the request at hand. The review criteria associated with the rezoning is on the screen. I want to touch base on a couple of them. Number A, conformance with adopted plans and planning policies. So the proposed rezoning does not align with the greater area downtown plan. The site proposes mixed use downtown, which is more for like office, commercial, some light industrial properties associated with the DX or DR zoning, not M2 district. Also with item number G, will this rezoning detrimentally affect nearby properties? I think that a rezoning to an M2 district is very intense for the subject site. There are no outdoor storage similar uses in the area, and it might set a precedence for more industrial uses to be in the area, which is not the intent of the area plan. And as well with number H, is there any gain to public health and safety for this request or in the denial of this request? And the neighborhood is adamantly opposed to this request. You can see some of those correspondence in Exhibit A of the staff report, which I have received from several members of the community. So city staff, we are recommending denial of this request because we do not perceive that the M2 zoning district is appropriate for the area, and rezoning the property in order to resolve a code case is also not an appropriate item to take place. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Can you restate again what you meant by the meeting, that the letter didn't get sent to the right location?
Yeah, so city staff and the Development Management Division, we do not maintain the contact information that is tied to the registered homes or neighborhood association that is linked to Parcel Viewer. That information appears to be outdated because the applicant did attempt to send the letter out to the neighborhood association, but got a returned letter as if that address is no longer applicable or up to date.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission to city staff regarding docket item number 11?
Just to clarify, the code violations deal with storage, outdoor storage?
Yes, sorry, I should have mentioned that at the beginning of my presentation. There is a code case associated with the site. So there is a trailer, a storage trailer, like a shipping container on the site that is used for the property owner's personal items, and that is not prohibited in the zoning district. And this all started in 2020.
Any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant then, if the applicant is available.
The applicant is on via phone, and Mr. Argento, you should be able to speak now. I allowed you to unmute yourself.
Yep. Hi, Mr. Argento. As you take yourself off of mute, please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Argento, you are connected. I am asking you to unmute via Zoom. Perhaps they are prompting you on your side of the phone. Joe, any technical advice?
It's showing us that he's muted on his end.
Can you hear me okay?
We can now. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, because it was *6. Oh, let me get my thoughts together here. Well, the first thing that I had to say is that the the reason why the thing got here was because my daughter and son-in-law had all their stuff that's almost homeless. And they had called people that I know, at least 5, that could they put the trailer on the property, and it was all no's. Well, all their belongings is in this trailer, and of course we have a business across the street called the Battle Funeral Home, which now that we use that because it's on the site, we use part of the for storage also. Now the thing, and you got to say, I'm 83 years old, and if I'm kind of slow, you got to forgive me, because it's not like when I was 30.
You're fine.
So in other words, I had 2 choices. Either I could let them lose everything that they had, which is in the storage trailer, or I could take the chance on bringing it down here. Well, I decided to take that chance, and I did that on our property. They had no place to go. Now, when they did that, I had a small infraction that the neighborhood investigator came, and she's out there on Blue Parkway. I think it's neighborhood association or neighborhood, I forget what they call it there. And went out there. She says, well, she wasn't called about that, but she's the one that noticed it, and she presented it to the City and Planning Commission.
Mm-hmm.
So a month goes by, 6 months goes by. I contact, she says, well, I don't think, if you haven't heard from him now, I think it's going to be okay. So here we'll go to a year and a half, 2 years later. And all of a sudden I get a letter from the City Planning Commission. So I said, well, I followed up. So the first encounter that I had was Mr. Zach Nelson of the City and Planning. And he says to me, at this time, I wouldn't appeal it because I don't think, at that time I could have appealed it, but he said it wouldn't be worth the while. I talked to the director on the 15th floor, I forget his name, and they said they didn't see no reason why that it wouldn't be upgraded from an M3 to an M4. I believe that's what they call it. Because he said across the street to the west, there's a house, a residential house, that's rated for commercial storage. To the south, to the east, to the south, I'm sorry, across the street, it's rated at M4. So I'm surrounded by all M4s, and the one that's to the west, right across the street, that's a house, that to me don't look like it should be a commercial property. It looks like mine should be more commercial property than that. It's just right across the street to the west. And then across the street to the south, I have another one that's graded for a commercial property. I'm the only one, and that's the reason why Mr. Zach Nelson and the director said they didn't see no problem why it wouldn't be upgraded to an M4. So I don't know what else to say except that there's enough homeless people out there that I had to make a decision to what am I going to do? Do they lose everything that they had? Or do I take that chance? And I took the chance. So here we are. And I also want to state if I can, that when I was a fire marshal, they said for Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department, I was there about 4 years, the last 4 years with the fire department. And they said to me, try to help the people as much as you can. And that's what I did. So I don't know what else to say except to, I guess it's going to go to the council. And I'm working very diligently to get this matter resolved. Can you hear me? Are you still there?
Yeah, we're still listening.
And so I don't know what else to say except to just to pray and hope for the best.
So basically on your site that you own, it's currently zoned B3-2, and you're trying to get it rezoned to M2-1. Just looking at parcel viewer all the way around you, even that house, everything is B3, but I guess that house has a part of it zone M1-5. So I'm trying to understand your situation here. So on your lot, you've got a storage container in which you're keeping goods that are from various homeless people on your side. Is that right?
Well, no, it's actually the reason why it's there in the first place, it belongs to my daughter, and that's all their belongings. They were almost homeless. Now, if they would have confiscated the trailer, that would have meant that that things would have just got 10 times worse. They would have lost everything. They had nothing. That was all their belongings in there. Okay. So like I said, to go back to say, I had to make a decision. They had called about 5 different people. And they said that they gave them all no's. So I had to say, do we just lose everything that they got? Or do I take the chance and try to take a chance and put the trailer there? I took the chance.
Okay. So how long has it been stored there so far?
About 2 years.
How long?
I didn't get a letter. Excuse me. I didn't get a letter from the Planning Commission until about 1.5 years, 2 years.
Sure. Yeah. And how long do you expect it to stay there? Is it going to stay there forever, or is it going to be?
No, I know. No, I know. I don't know. No. I'm going to see about getting a place to try to get it moved if we can. But so in other words, that's because we own this property.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Bedell Funeral Home that's been here forever.
Yeah.
Since the turn of the century. And so in other words, that property belongs to Bedell Funeral Home.
Yeah.
That 908. That's all part of the garage, the brick garage, the parking lot, everything. And I don't want to go into all the stuff that we've done for the community. I mean, that's not even pertaining to the.
What's your time frame that it may be removed?
That'd be a hard question for me to answer. Really, to be truthful with you, I really don't know.
6 months, a year?
Well, I would say probably see what happens within a year, and if it's that's the only thing I can say. And I'm just kind of it's kind of a great. I'm kind of in between here on how long will it stay. I guess try to give me as much time to do that and try to find a place where we could move it to. But my understanding is it's going to be all up to the council.
Yeah, well, here's, I guess what I'm trying to get at is if it's possible to get it moved within a reasonable time frame, so you don't have to go through all this rezoning, that might be the best option, but
But the thing of it is that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. Mr. Zach Nelson, when I first talked to him and the director, they thought it was in my best interest to try to get it upgraded, so that way there'll be no problems no more. And I did that. I took his recommendation, Mr. Zach Nelson.
Can Joe speak to that? Just, I'd like to get some staff perspective on this.
Yeah, I think when he's referring to the director, I think he's probably referring to me because I did speak with Mr. Argento a couple times and Zach did as well. So there's two issues here, and I think they're easy to confuse. One is the code case, which is a staff level decision. Whenever we find a violation on a property, that since it's staff level decision, it can be appealed to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. But the appeal and when we're working with customers, even if they're, in our opinion, violating the ordinance, we try to present them with all their options. So the appeal process is a higher burden for a customer because they have to prove that we erred when we made our decision on the violation. Whereas with rezoning, they don't really have to prove anything. So whenever we talk with customers, we do try to convey to them that the difference between the two, and one is the appeal is traditionally more difficult than a rezoning. However, I know I was very clear with Mr. Argento that rezoning would also be very difficult. We always describe to customers that we're one of 3 or 4 different things that go into it in terms of staff's recommendation. And I do recall telling him that staff would not support this because of the area plan recommendation.
Can I ask if, because I'm just thinking a lot of people store trailers for construction sites or whatnot temporarily, and they're not asking for rezoning, they're just probably asking for some kind of permit to allow them to do that on a convenient surface lot. Is that an alternative to rezoning? Is something that just allows him to keep this on site for the next year and then revisit?
Yeah, I mean, there is, I think, are you referring to like people who rent the temporary storage that they put in their driveway?
Yeah, that's a good example too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's construction storage, which is permitted on the construction site. That's obviously not what this site is. The storage that's in like a temporary storage in a driveway is allowed by code and up to a certain time frame. I believe it's something, we can confirm this, but I believe it's something like 30 days. So this has been in violation of that. It wouldn't even apply because this is a shipping container and there is a provision in the ordinance that expressly prohibits shipping containers to be used for storage of materials in a residential or throughout the city, not just in a residential zone. So there are options. Yes, you can put it in a temporary, some other sort of legal container, but even if that container is that type of container is allowed, it's limited in time.
Okay. And then I guess my question back to the applicant would be, is it possible for this to move off-site to a self-storage facility as an alternative?
I don't know, restate the question. I didn't quite understand the question.
If you could take it to a self-storage facility where all of the belongings that are in there, instead of keeping it on site, that you take it to a place that you can store those belongings so that you're not having to dispose of them. You're just storing them and paying a fee off-site somewhere.
Well, the best way that I could answer that question is that because of we have a funeral home, and we haven't been doing very well with the COVID. Our finances haven't been very well. So the the most economical way that I could see at this time is we can't really afford to be paying any outside people to store anything, because they don't want people, because it was when you have a service, you got to have people to gather here. They don't want a lot of people gathering with the Colville Jackson County, in my understanding. And we've gotten, I think she's got letters from that. Actually, my wife, she's a minority owner, she's a woman. Oh no, it's a Battle Funeral Home. So the point I'm trying to make is that financially we're not doing too well with all this Colville, and to go put it someplace else, I'm just adding fuel to the fire because I have a lot of problems right now. So so right now at this time, I really don't have no answers, but I'm looking for answers. That's the best way I could put it.
Is there someone from staff who could outline that, because we're trying to view long or use of this property into the future. And so, I personally don't think this is the use that we want, but that doesn't mean that anything changes immediately. And is there someone from staff who can talk about, this is the process to make this a permanent solution, but as the applicant has said, he doesn't want this to be a permanent solution anyway. Can anyone indicate kind of what the next steps are from the city's process as the complaint came up, and how quickly he would be required to remove the storage unit?
So when a notice of violation is sent for this type of violation, the customer is given 15 days to abate the violation, which, traditionally that would be remove the violation entirely. We do routinely, and have in this case, extend that time frame for reasons that you guys are all discussing right now. So this complaint originally was filed in April of 2020. And the reason this is just getting to you all is because we have done numerous extensions and had some of the same conversations with Mr. Argento since that time. And eventually, in order to get a resolution on a case, the applicant has a right, the property owner has a right to due process and apply for the appeal or rezoning in order to make their violation legal. And that's what Mr. Argento has chosen to do.
So Mr. Argentino, what about your brick building? Can that be used for the storage? Put everything in there or not?
Yeah, well, we got a whole bunch of stuff in there right now for the business. All kind of different, because we got flyers and all kind of different things that we have for the business, and it's kind of loaded right now. But the thing of it is, even if we took everything out of the trailer, the point being is the still what you're saying, the trailer has got to be moved, even if we did take everything out and put it in there. So if we do move the trailer, then I would leave everything in there and just try to move it. But but I have to say that my choice was to try, and I thought that was the right thing to do, is try to get it rezoned. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. So I guess from my understanding, where it goes from here is to the council. My council people.
It'd be our recommendation to the council.
They say yay or nay. So right now, I don't know. I'm kind of in a rock and a hard spot, because the reason being that this is really not my trailer, although we're using it partly for storage since it's been here. It belongs to my daughter, and it goes back to the same thing. If I had decided not to let her put it here, she would have lost everything. Everything. And I figure there's enough homeless people out there. Don't make matters worse. That's my feelings on it anyway. That's the truth. That's my truthful thinking.
Okay.
So I decided, excuse me, I decided to make the decision not to kill it, but to go ahead and to try to upgrade it so it would be legal. And that's where I stand at this time.
Okay, I appreciate your comments and understand what you're going through on this. Our body here is looking at the land itself and the best use for the actual land. And before us is an application for rezoning. And I'm unfortunately not getting the warm and fuzzies on to rezone this to a high use in terms of manufacturing. And frankly, I'm not in favor of it at this time. I sympathize with what you're going through. I understand what you're doing. You want to do what's right for your kids and that. But it seems like something like this can be handled through a special permit, temporary permit of sorts, or even just removing the container, altogether. That's my opinion. So I'm going to leave things right here where it's at. I'd like to open this up for public testimony. So if there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 11, please raise your hand and you will be called upon to speak on this case.
Mr. Chair, I promoted Brett Pruitt, and after that, it'll be Dan Wayne.
Okay. And so Rocky, just so you understand, we're going to go through the public testimony here. I'll keep notes on some comments that they have. And then once we're through with public testimony, we'll come back to you to address the comments that they have.
Good enough.
All right, makes sense. Okay, thank you. All right, so Mr. Pruitt, if you'd like to go first, please state your name and address for the record.
Brett Pruitt, 905 East 5th Street. We have East Market Studios, hair salon and photography studio. We also reside at the residence on the top floor.
Okay.
I appreciate Mr. Argento's predicament. We just adamantly oppose rezoning that property, as it would affect our property values in the future, is what I deem. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say. I appreciate Anna's attention to the report and all the details she put into it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Joey, you said you had somebody else?
Yeah, it's Dan Wayne.
Hello, this is Dan Wayne. I can't seem to get my video to work, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. If you don't mind stating your name and address for the record.
Sure thing. Dan Wayne, 918 East 5th Street. I am president of the Soda Lofts Condominium Owners Association, which is at the same address. We are on the same block, and everybody here is unanimously against rezoning. As soon as I got the notice from city planning in November, I forwarded it to our community council, the neighborhood association, who also is unanimously against the rezoning. There's been a lot of effort in the neighborhood to get rid of industrial uses. All of the area north of the subject property was at one point, well, besides the housing authority land, the other parcels were almost all industrial use, and all of that has been changed to UR, and every area plan that I've ever read that regards this parcel, the downtown area plan, the Columbus Park urban renewal plan, and the older Columbus Park area plan, all recommend that this particular parcel be commercial, residential, or mixed use.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else, Joe?
Yes, Kathy Logan has also been promoted, or she raised her hand and then lowered it. I'll promote her just in case she wanted to speak.
Okay. Hi, Kathy. You want to speak on this case, are you?
Hold on a minute. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I see myself up there. I live in the little house across the street that had been discussed earlier. And, you know, we live here as our residents. I live at 416 Campbell Street. And we're opposed to it simply because, you know, we don't want industrial activity going on, you know, just about 50 feet from our living room. You know, when we bought this house, I bought this house in 2011, and I actually had people from the neighborhood come over and tell me, don't change anything, don't add anything, don't build anything in the yard, which was fine with me because I wanted to use it as a residence. And I'm just concerned with having, you know, commercial. I know it's a commercial neighborhood. Our house is rated commercial, but we just don't want going forward to know industrial uses could go in there. So that's really all I had to say. And I'll leave now.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Joe?
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So at this time, we'll go ahead and close public testimony. So Rocky, I think the big thing you've heard is there's a lot of opposition to rezoning the site simply, you know, due to, you know, don't want manufacturing it to be, you know, rezoned to manufacturing or anything like that. Any comments to address that at this time?
No, the only thing that that I could say is that I went this far with the rezoning process, and now I'm just going to wait and see what the decision is of the council, what they decide to do, and then that's when I'm going to have to take action.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So at this time, I'll go ahead and close all testimony and speak amongst the commission. Looks like Mr. Rome, do you have your hand up for something? Kirk?
My guess is that was accidental because there's not been any water services department involvement on this case.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I thought I'd give him the chance anyways. Okay, so we're closing all testimony at this time and speak amongst the commission on this particular case. Anybody got thoughts that wants to go first?
I'll just say I think that the solution lies outside of rezoning the property. I think we've, at least in my opinion, seen the negative effects of rezoning something and not knowing what can be put on there by right in the future today. So I'll be recommending denial of this case.
Okay. I agree with that. You're absolutely right. I think it's something that can be done outside of rezoning of this site, and it doesn't seem appropriate for this site to me, and also in favor of denial.
I agree as well. I wanted to point out that I put something in the chat that I would encourage Mr. Argento to talk to his council person, because there's a lot of support right now around how to support this exact situation you're speaking of. So I just hope that you reach out to them and maybe find another alternative path here outside of rezoning the site.
Okay, anybody else? I'll go ahead and take a motion then.
Commissioner Chair Crowell, I move to recommend denial on docket item number 11.
Okay, and that's a denial of the case altogether, not really denial of what is recommended by the staff.
Denial of the case altogether.
Okay.
Second.
So got a motion and a second for denial of the case of docket item number 11. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill, Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Okay, so at this time, Rocky, the Planning Commission has recommended denial of this case to go to the City Council. You can either stop at this point, or if you want to go to council, I'm sure you can go forward with that as you like. So, but that's recommendation going forward is denial of your case to rezone.
Yeah. So like I said, right now, what I'm going to do, since I went this far, I'm going to wait and see what the council decision is.
Okay.
They got the final approval. And when they say yay or they say nay, my understanding is, I don't know, because I'm not going to go to the Jackson County Circuit Court and get a lawyer or nothing like that. But when there's no more appeals when they say no. The City Council, is that correct?
Well, like you said, you could take it to court, but why don't you work with Anna on that, on your next steps as to what you need to do? I think, again, this body certainly sympathizes with what you're going through with your daughter and the homelessness, but we encourage you to look at other alternatives than rezoning this particular site. So thank you for your time.
And yeah, and I'll do that and see where we're at now. Which I always think of the worst and hope for the best.
Sure.
If the council disapproves of the things staying there, then I have a certain amount of time from the I guess the investigator to how much time that I have to move it.
Yeah, and Anna can work with you on all those kind of things and questions on the timing and that. So we need to move on to our next case. Again, we appreciate you coming in. And
okay, I know you got you got more cases to go. So in other words, that's where I stand right now at this time.
Yeah. So work with Anna on your next step.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, let's move on to our last docket item here today, which is docket item number 12.
Case number ROW 2021-00038. Request to vacate a portion of Norton Avenue between 38th Street on the north and 39th Street on the south to allow for construction of a new residential project. I'm going to present this case on behalf of Food, and I'm going to go ahead and promote Patrick Joyce because I believe he's here for the applicant today. And then bear with me as I share my screen.
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute there, Joe. This is Patrick Joyce with Anderson Engineering, 941 West 142nd Street, KCMO.
Okay, thank you. Let's have staff go through the case first, Mr. Joyce, and then we'll come back to you after that.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So this project is located off of East 39th Street near Jackson Avenue. The area highlighted in yellow here on this aerial photograph is the right-of-way in question. So it is a portion of the Norton Avenue right-of-way north of 39th Street. Right here is 39th and Norton, extending up to 38th Street. As you can see, 38th Street is not built. Neither is Norton Avenue. And even north of 38th Street, Norton Avenue is not built. We did check with our Historic Resources Commission staff, and they looked through old aerial photographs, and there's no evidence these roads ever existed. So these are what we call paper streets, where the right-of-way was platted, but the roads were never built. There is probably good reason for that. The terrain is very difficult in this area. On the next slide, you'll see that this is a view looking north up the Norton Avenue right-of-way where it exists today. So you see there's a little commercial building to the left of the right-of-way, which is right here. And you can see, obviously, there is no street there. In the distance, you could see that the land just drops off. That gives you an idea of some of the terrain challenges that exist in the area. This is an exhibit provided by the applicant identifying the right-of-way to be vacated. The proposed development project lies just to the east of this site, kind of down towards the bottom of the hill. And part of the reason for the vacation is that they would be required to make half-street improvements to Norton Avenue, as that is a standard public improvement requirement as part of their development project. But they really don't need that road, and they're asking for the vacation so that they don't have to build that street improvement. This is a site plan that has been presented for that development. Norton Avenue here is on the top of this plan, and north is on the right. So that's 38th Street that you see on the right. These are the approval criteria that we have to consider for vacations. The first is that all property owners in the area of the vacation have a legal access to another public right-of-way. They do have all have legal access to another public right-of-way. The retention of the right-of-way serves no current purpose and no future useful public purpose is anticipated. We do know what the future plan for the property to the east is, and as you could see on that plan that was that I just showed you, they don't need the road because they'll be taking access to Jackson Avenue. And since the road was never constructed, it is clear to staff that there has been no public purpose for the road and likely would not be in the future. The remainder of the criteria have mainly to do with connectivity, which of course is important, but as you can see here, since the streets do not exist, it does not reduce any physical connectivity that's already not provided in the area, and it does not result in a dead-end street or alley or traffic being routed through an alley in lieu of a street. And of course, Norton Avenue is not on the major street plan, so we're not conflicting with the last of the criteria. And so there are 3 conditions staff is recommending. These are pretty standard conditions with any right-of-way vacation. There is a sewer line that crosses east to west across the right-of-way to be vacated. And there may also be some private utilities within the right-of-way. So for that reason, we're recommending that a utility easement be retained. Access easement should also be retained just to provide any future physical access if necessary to some of the properties on the west side of the proposed or of the right-of-way vacation. And then of course, Water Services is recommending one condition related to their sewer main that crosses over the right-of-way to be vacated. And staff is supportive of this request, recommending approval subject to these conditions, and that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Are there any questions regarding docket item number 12 from the commission to the applicant or to the staff? Sorry.
Joe, could you give me a quick refresher on why it's better to vacate than have some sort of deviation or condition that, or another way of not requiring the street to be improved?
Sorry, I was muted. So your question is why is it better to vacate versus deviate from the
exactly
public improvement requirement? In this case, the vacation is makes sense because we have right of way that we have to maintain and we're responsible for as a city, but yet we've never used. So in this case, staff believes it's in the city's best interest as well to vacate this right of way, whereas getting an additional street that's only a half street, because that's all that's required for them to build is a half street, which would be awkward at best to have half the width of a street built. To ask them to do that or to waive that requirement and to continue to own right of way that exists and we're responsible for, but is really not useful to anyone. It seemed to make more sense to vacate it in this case.
Gotcha. So primarily about ongoing maintenance.
Right. Or the requirement that we'd have to maintain it and we'd have to grant people access to it because it's public property, but yet it goes through down that hill. It's it's maintenance, safety issues. Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
So Joe, the private property or the property owner that we're vacating would be responsible for the maintenance?
Yes, it would become private property and half would go to half the right of way would go to them and half to the other side of the street, to the owner on that side.
And is the owner on the other side of the street?
Doesn't the development own the other side of the street as well?
I'll let Mr. Joyce speak to that. I don't believe they're proposing to develop it, but they may own it.
That's correct, Joe. We own a good portion. There's a small piece that we do not own. That's in the that's that building that you saw in that picture that you showed. That one is owned by another individual, but we own more than 75% of the properties along the side of the vacation, the proposed vacation.
But my only question then is that a condition that property owner is
kind of losing you, Commissioner Allender.
The only other thing I had was, is that another condition that we need to put in, that the private property owner would be responsible for the maintenance if it's vacated, and maybe it's in another part of the code, but I just want to make sure that they're responsible. It's clear that they're responsible for maintaining if we do vacate.
That's not something that at least in my time in the city, we've ever conditioned. I think my perspective on it is that it just becomes land that the owner is responsible for. And just like the rest of their property, they're responsible for maintaining it.
And that would be our understanding, is that it just becomes our property and it's maintained just the same as we would maintain the rest of it.
As long as that's clear, I just want to make sure that there's no legal issues that you do have that responsibility.
Yeah, we understand that.
Any other questions from the commission to city staff? Joe, has that site plan been turned in yet? That kind of shows the area off 39th and Jackson. This proposed development.
Yes. Yeah, it has already gone through you guys. And I believe this was a condition of approval. It was either make the half street improvement or vacate the right of way.
Yeah, okay. Glad I recognize this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's go ahead and welcome the applicant this time. So Mr. Joyce, welcome. If I could talk about the project and what you're trying to do here, that'd be great.
Sure thing. I'll say again, so my name is Patrick Joyce. I'm with Anderson Engineering. We're at 941 West 141st Terrace in Kcmo. Also with me today is Donnell McGee. He's with the Vicino Group. He's project manager for this project, and Matt McLaughlin, who is our project architect, also with the Vicino Group. So Joe did a great job of talking about the the project. Just as a reminder to everybody, you have seen this project before. This one referred to as the Bodie residential development. It is a 53 unit supportive housing development. The 53 units are divided among 7 multi-unit houses that are being proposed in the extreme northeast corner of the site. As Joe indicated, the site topography is such on this site that it is very hilly. There's over 50 foot of elevation change across the site. We sought this vacation because we felt that Norton Avenue was not going to be needed for this development. We do own, as we mentioned, the property, the bulk of the property to the west of the vacation as well. We have no plans for that property, but that property does have access off of 38th Street, right away to the north. We do intend to construct 38th Street along the northern part of our development. We also are making half street improvements to Jackson Avenue along the east side of our development. Let's see, what else is there to say here? We did go through the vacation process. The only concern that we saw that was a condition that water services would require an easement be retained for the sanitary sewer that crosses the right away near the southern end of our property. That's we don't have any issues with that, especially since it's well out of our development area. From the staff report, we see a concurrence that this vacation appears favorable, and we'd ask for the commission's vote in favor of this vacation. But with that, we stand for any questions that you may have for us that we could answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission to the applicant?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It's not directly for the vacation that's in front of us, but it is regarding the upper portion or the southern portion of their property that faces 39th Street. When they presented their original plan for the actual structures, my question was, what were they going to do about the property across 39th Street? And I don't believe they understood what it was I was trying to address. I did reach out to Olafu to see if I had missed something, because all of the landscaping was just around the development. So has there been conversation about what would be done with the maintenance and landscaping of that upper portion that you own that faces 39th Street? And I'm sorry if this is not the proper time to do that, forgive me, but that's one of my questions for this project.
So we understand. So if I understand you correctly, you're talking about basically we have what we might call the lower ground and the higher ground. So you're talking about the higher ground up near 39th Street. Are we going to cover maintenance of that by way of making sure that we're mowing it and things like that, maintain, cutting miscellaneous trees and things that come up, trash buildup, cleaning it up and stuff like that,
as well as landscaping that area,
as well as providing landscaping?
Yes.
Well, we do plan to meet whatever the requirements of Kansas City, Missouri are there. As for mowing and keeping that grass down, I think that's anticipated as part of the ownership of this ground. There is a large, I guess, a treed area in between the upper and the lower ground that we don't really intend to disturb. That's kind of a I don't know, a forest area, if you will. But keeping trash cleaned up, grass mowed in the open areas. That's of course stuff that we anticipate. I don't know if Donnell has anything else to add to that, but that's kind of where we're at. If landscaping is going to be required up there, if we have to add trees or anything like that, of course, we're going to comply with whatever the staff requires of us.
Patrick, this is Matt. Could I interject really quick? If
Absolutely.
I understand what we're doing correctly. This is Matt McLaughlin. I'm the project architect for the Bodie development. Our address is 305 West Commercial Street, Springfield, Missouri. Patrick, if I understand correctly, what we're going to do with the remaining lots, or the intent is that after Norton is vacated, the remaining lots, we're going to replat such that we will have a lot on the south side that is adjacent to 39th Street. We will have a section of land between the south lot and the north lot that is then dedicated to parkland. And then we will have our northeastern lot, which is where our development will actually be. And that's the lot that we plan to develop. And the intent is that that lot will conform with all landscaping requirements of this zoning and of our construction type. But the lot to the south, adjacent to 39th, was not really intended to be developed at this time.
And that's right, Matt. You hit it right on the head. That's exactly what the platting process is going to look like there. So that lot to the south will remain an undeveloped lot.
And I understood that part. My concern is maintenance of that, because when it initially was presented, that was what was stressed, but you had no plans to develop it, but no one addressed. So how are you going to maintain it? Are you going to put a fence around that part of it to continue from the fencing that's in the part that you are developing? Because right now it's an eyesore. That's all. I just wanted to find out how you're going to maintain the property that you're not developing, that is your property now.
I understand. The intent is to absolutely keep it clean and keep it maintained, as Patrick had mentioned before. I guess the only thing is we had not intended to put any additional new landscaping in that lot until we had a development plan for it, which we do not at this time. But maintenance of the site, well, we'll absolutely maintain that just as we would the rest of our property.
That south lot, are you planning on, once it's replatted, holding that lot, or are you interested in actively selling it?
My understanding is, and I could be speaking way out of turn here, Donnell might know this better than I do. My understanding is we have to keep that property as part of the deal. So our intent is to keep that property and potentially develop it in the future, but we have no plans to do that in the near future. However, we are not able to sell it, if I understand correctly. It's part of, it has to do with how we acquire the land and get funding through MHDC. And I'm very, very sorry. I don't know a whole lot about how all this stuff works, but we have to keep hold of that property for a period of anywhere from 20 to 30 years.
Gotcha. Okay. And I assume that would be for some other LIHTC project, would be the deed restriction on that.
I would assume so, yes. Although I will reiterate that we have no plans to develop in that spot at this time. One of our original plans way back when we first started looking at this site was to put buildings on the south side of the property. However, looking at the topography and the amount of the density that would be required for it, it just would not fit in that space, and it just didn't really feel appropriate for the neighborhood.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Get your question answered, Commissioner Beasley?
Yes, I did. Thank
Okay.
you. And I do support the vacation.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions from commission to the applicant, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. So if there's anybody out there that would like to speak about docket item number 12, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, I've asked Tanya Skillman to accept promotion.
Okay. Hi, Tanya. As you take yourself off of mute, please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Tanya Skillman with Vecino Group. I am also working as a project manager on this deal, and so just wanted to make myself available for any questions from the commission. I didn't have any additional comments.
All right, thank you. Anybody else, Joe?
Sorry, no, there's no one else who's raised their hand.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and close then public testimony. Anything else to add, applicants, before commission goes into discussion?
I don't think so.
Okay. So at this time, we'll go ahead and close all testimony and speak amongst the commission. If there's nothing to discuss, I'll take a motion, please.
I move to approve docket item 12 with conditions.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a couple seconds for approval of docket item number 12 with conditions stated. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye. Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like the motion passes 8-0 for approval of the project. We appreciate you bringing it in and good luck moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So that takes us through the end of our docket item. And anything else the commission would like to talk about before we adjourn for the day?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to share some information with the commission regarding training whenever you're able to. If that's okay with you.
I'm ready, man.
Okay. So there were several topics outlined and I just have some information on it. One is that the long range planners are interested in providing a quarterly update on the comprehensive plan and how that's going, and taking any feedback of the commission. And so what I'm asking the commission is, one, does a quarterly schedule make sense to you all? And if so, we'll get it on the schedule. The other topics relate to stormwater and the green infrastructure manual and ordinances that are being developed. That will probably be 2 work sessions. One would be the bigger picture stormwater discussion, and then we'll drill down to the green infrastructure later. But I do have staff from water services on board to participate in that as well. And then the third issue, or there's 2 more issues. The third one is related to, you guys had asked about getting some training and information from Parks Department related to the Parkway and Boulevard standards and what the Parks Department's expectations are and how the standards came to be. So we do have staff from Parks Department who are willing to come in and talk about that. And finally, the fourth issue is related to blight, particularly what state law says about blight. And that one's taking a bit more time because we have to work with external people to get some people and the right people to the table to talk with you guys about that. So if we go back to the long range, is a quarterly presentation something that the commission would be interested in?
Yeah, I think so. The goal is for the thing to be done by the end of this year, isn't it?
I'm not sure. So I probably need to attend that as well.
Okay.
Okay, I will get that scheduled, and we'll be publishing that on the agenda as well. And then the stormwater thing, I don't
Joe,
have.
can I ask one thing with the before we move on to the next one? If those folks can also speak to the area plans, since a lot of our decisions now are made around the area plans, that might be a good opportunity for them to speak to both.
Is there any specific issue about area plans or topic related to area plans that you'd like them to touch on?
I think just a better understanding. I think I sent you an email earlier this morning. I'm trying to better understand how we coordinate between what the expectations of the area plans are versus a new use or new project plan, and making sure we understand what each of those types are.
Okay.
But that being said, you might also want to include the overlays that some areas have included as well.
I think it'd be interesting to hear from them directly too, to talk about how they can't, foresee how things might change even in a short period of time, and how they would want others to interpret intent or make exceptions. It might be interesting to hear their perspective on when it's appropriate to be lenient and when they really think it should be adhered to.
Okay. All right, and then on stormwater, it's looking like that we'll have 2 back-to-back sessions probably, or maybe if not back-to-back, like 1 month, we'll have the overall one, and the next month green infrastructure. And it's looking like late spring for that, but I'm trying to nail them down on dates, and we'll give you guys some updates as we move forward. So I think the first thing we'll do is get Parks Department to come in, because that'll be the easiest, I think, in terms of scheduling, to talk about the Boulevard, Parkway, and Park questions you guys have, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, Joe, I sat in on the Stormwater Committee, and I just can't remember the timeline now, but I think they were going to the council, and then they were coming back to the commission, if I remember the timeline right. But the policy pretty much seemed set, even though they were taking some comments. So is this just really going to be more of an information, or are they looking for feedback from the commission on the policy?
Well, it's something that we've requested of them, because it will certainly affect development and how that happens. And so we think it's important that staff in our department thinks it's important for the information to be presented to you all. And we've asserted all along that it needs to be early enough that you can provide some meaningful impact.
Okay.
I've made it very clear to the project managers that meaningful impact from the commission is desirable. So hopefully they'll be open to that.
Okay, it just seemed to me that the policy was pretty far along, but if they're open still to input, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, so you think, what meeting do you think the training will start, Joe, for the Parkway and Boulevard stand? Is that the next meeting, or is that the one following that?
So, it could potentially be the next meeting, but if not the next one, the one after that, I imagine I'd want to look at the length of the agendas to know for sure, but we can either do the next one or the one after that.
How's our agenda looking for the next meeting?
I'd have to pull it up. I can do that. Just bear with me.
Hey, Joe, I've just got probably one more comment. It seemed to me that the policy was in good enough shape for them to come and present to the commission. They could do it now. I mean, from the meeting I sat in, You know, they've got their thoughts around the policy, how they wanted to set it and so forth. This is the committee. So I'm not sure that we have to wait to spring. It'd be just a question back to the ward department, whether they're willing to, or what are the processes that they need or inputs that they need for them to come back to us, especially if they want to have some meaningful input back from the commission earlier rather than later. But that policy seemed to me fairly well, at least framed.
Well, I can try to put some pressure on them to maybe open up some time for the next meeting or the one after that. They've indicated to me that they would not be available until April. I don't know why. I mean, everyone's busy, but that could be why. But I do think if that's pushing it too far down the road, from a feedback perspective, then I will lean on them to try to come and talk to us sooner. The last project manager that I spoke with about it, and she's no longer with the city, did not indicate that they were that far along, you know, in terms of solidifying the policies within it. So I'll follow up with them and try to get it on your guys' agenda sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, they've certainly got their thoughts.
Right. Your January 18th agenda, I'm sorry, February 1st agenda has 24 cases right now. Actually, I was looking at the wrong date. It has 36, so we'll probably push it to the second meeting in February. But again, we don't know how that shakes out until we look at all the status of all the cases. It could be several of those will get continued, but I'll be in communication about it. Anything else about the work session topics, training topics?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Okay. Is that it?
All I have.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. See you all next meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.